Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Season 4 APDL Rillaboom Division Power Rankings. I am your host, Spades. Joining me is Season 2 Thwacky Champion, Tough Luck.
So,
And we have a newcomer to the league last season who finished very well and made a playoff run. It's Ilya-chan.
Hello.
Alright, so we are going to judge all these teams harshly. Our goal is to hurt your feelings and make you second guess every single pick.
I'm ready.
Just don't beat us whenever we play you. Okay.
Yeah, I can't wait to trash some of these teams and then just get destroyed like week one.
All right. And speaking of one of those teams, we have the first alphabetical order-wise, the Colorado Cobalions with Coach Scribbles. So.
My week one opponent.
Exactly.
So here we go.
We got the Lando
oddly
T,
enough-
Reggie Alecki.
Yeah, oddly enough, I had them as one of my bottom three teams. So I'm going to really have to put a sock in my mouth if I lose. So I guess I can just go ahead with the team. Obviously, you see it on the screen. Lando Lucky, very solid. Blastoise Clef, both those were on my team last season. And Clef was defensive MVP, so I know me pretty well as being a meat shield. At least just for me, though, it's like outside of those four, I don't super see what Goth does for this team outside of like Trick Room. I guess, trapping's nice, but obviously the big thing is like Perish Trap. Hydreigon, I've never super been like in love with in VGC. And just like the bottom parts of this team is just kind of not great in my opinion. Licky could do things, but it's kind of an odd thing for how much points it's for. And as much as I love Wigglytuff and Jigglypuff, don't draft them.
No mention of Lurantis, I see.
I can see, but like also I feel like it needs 10 more moves to be viable.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, to be fair though, this has both modes. Like you have a Trick Room option with the Scavalier, with the Lurantis,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have the other side where you have Regieleki slowing things down for Landorus, for Blastoise, for Hydreigon. So like you can sort of see these pieces together. And Torracat
Yeah,
being Intimidate and Fake Out helps a lot.
I mean, I really like the double Intimidate on this team because, there's almost nothing better than Lando beside Instant, and you get Baby Instant with Torracat. But, like, for me, coming from, like, a singles background, I definitely like seeing how typings are with teams and their type resistances and also speed tiers. And it really irks me that it goes from 200 to 98 on your speed tiers, and you don't have a rock resist. I gave Ilya a lot of crap last season about not having a ghost resist, and unfortunately I wasn't able to show that, like, hey, don't do that versus a Spectre. But if teams don't have, like, a resist to a typing, especially in a Dynamax format, like, that really, like, gives me a partial aneurysm.
Another thing, and this is kind of an agreement and I guess kind of a bit of a pushback on the speed tiers thing. I guess number one, I was gonna make a point about it. I'm a general fan of Torracat, just like for points and whatnot, and that's why it's 9 points. It's better than you would think for pre-evolution. But interestingly, I think on these kind of pseudo Trick Room teams, it's like the 90 speed instead of 60 speed is kind of a you might say a negative of it that I think is interesting. It's like as much as I think the mana is good, I think that this is a team that makes less good use of it, despite the 90 speed technically being better than like a 60 speed.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you're comparing that with Incineroar being like the slower of the two, which I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense. Torracat is clearly going to not be in your Trick Room option with the team being the 90 base speed. But it still has like fast Snarl, fast Will-O-Wisp support, so like you can use it in that role alongside your Blastoise, your Lando, your Lecky.
Also, I do kind of like the structure of the team, even though I do agree that I don't know that all the particular mons are particularly great at their roles, but in general, with something I've noticed, and maybe you guys will disagree, but in these draft leagues, I don't like full on hard Trick Room teams for a lot of reasons, and I think that if you are playing a team with a heavy Trick Room element, it does pay a lot to have these mons at somewhat above average or well, I'm not making the point perfectly, but like the idea of being able to when people run their power bracers and whatnot to try to underspeed you and then just win the bulk war anyway, to be able to for them to not always be able to safely do that because you have Regieleki, because you have a Quashmon, because you have some sort of tailwind mode or something like that. And I think that that one of the things that this team does a bit well is more or less that in the structure.
Again, I see what you're coming from, but in terms of like running the Trick Room mode versus, I guess, the faster mode of this team, I mean, again, still, I would like to have at least maybe 1 or 2 mons that's not a Lecky above 100 to run the speed like a little bit better. I mean, sure, you get Blastoise and Lando to benefit from Tailwind, also from High Dragon, but like also on the Trick Room side, it's really kind of just Escav.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you're running offensive Licky Licky, it's not impossible. I've seen it run before, or so singles, but it's I don't want to say it's like a jack of all trades because I mean it's definitely missing some options to be that, but it's dipping its toes into both options without really excelling in either. In my opinion,
I'm more saying, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just noting that you don't want to focus so much on bulk to the point that you underspeed Lando T or Hydreigon.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
Not so much the Lecky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Double Intimidate also adds to a lot of the bulk this team has, because Hydreigon is definitely, in Regieleki, are not the bulkiest Pokemon by any means. So if you can run a lot more special defense because you have those 2 Intimidators, I can see this team playing a little bit slower too with Blastoise, with Landorus, and setting up with Clefable support.
Mm-hmm.
So this team's got game to it. I think it's gonna be middle of the road. It's more of like show us what you got kind of thing. So
Yeah. No,
What
there's
exactly?
definitely.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say there's definitely options to be creative here, so I'm curious to see what happens.
yeah,
Because
we,
at
we
least in
need to
terms
see
of like,
those options is what
yeah,
we're
because
at.
in terms of like, I guess with my rankings, I just kind of looked at like standard cores, or at least it's what immediately popped out to me. And I'm not seeing too much outside of just Clefable supporting the team and then Alecki making sure like you can actually move first in some indications.
What does the what would you say is the role of the Blastoise on this team? And this is more of a personal failing of me. I don't really know exactly what that mon
Literally
does.
Shell Smash next to Clefable. That's mostly what it does.
Okay, yeah, just the
I mean,
Clefable.
fake
Yeah, I
out,
mean you can still run Fake Out, yeah, but
or
I
you
mean
can
if
be
you're gonna
bold
draft
and
a Clefable
go
next to
self
it,
Aqua Jet into your Landorus, but that's only something
yeah.
stupid I would do.
I mean, yeah, it's just like whenever I tried to bring Blastoise last season, and you have the option of Clefable, you just kind of always want to bring Shell Smash. I mean, I'm in week 1 versus Spades. I brought a really shitty AV set, but and that turned out great.
All
But
right,
yeah,
so out of 10, what do you guys give this team?
probably like a 3 or a 4.
I was thinking 4. I think there's a lot of potential to it. It's just more of we need to see it.
Yeah.
It's hard to say for me. For me, I see more of like a 6 or 7 as average, or at least I was. But if we're doing the sort of thing where 5 is average and 4 is a bit below average, I would say, for me, probably a 4 or 5. I do think that they're when you're preparing for this team, like I said, I do think there's a big risk of uh, just getting kind of smacked around by accidentally making yourself slower than Lando T, and you definitely don't want to do that. But I agree that it's a little bit on the below average side.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to the next team. All right, next up we have the Deepwood Decidueyes, coached by Mick. Everyone knows Mick in the server, so this is no surprise here. And he got the Moltres Galar Amoonguss team with Sand.
And Ice Resistant Teleon.
Was his first pick Moltres or Excadrill?
It was
I didn't look at any of the
Moltres,
first
I
picks.
believe.
Yeah, it was the Moltres.
Which, basically the 4 Mons that I mentioned are kind of what this team is.
Yeah. And that'll hold it well down enough. I mean, I like a decent amount of supporting core. I wish the Trick Room setter was better than Malamar, considering how good Gigalith and Turtonator both are in it. Alcremie, I've at least gained some respect. I mean, Decorate's really nice, but also I can't say bad things about it because in my league we have a person who has like a 9-2 Alcremie after the first 2 weeks. Only one of those games at Dynamax, so it's like I'm like contractually obligated to not talk crap about it right now.
I can still talk crap about it though. No, it's a good Mon. I can't say anything bad about it.
Yeah, it definitely intrigues me now. Braviary, I mean, as a Defiant user, is really nice for the Sand Core. I mean, dual flying might be tad redundant, but I can see it working. It's just you're going to kind of be hard pressed to not just bring Moltres both or like over it most of the time. However, I do really like Sand plus Moltres having. They really pair well with each other, taking on each other's checks. Moltres being weak to electrics and fairies, rocks, and Sand just destroys all of that. Whereas Moltres can take on the other like opposing ground types, take on the psychics that threaten Amoonguss, so on and so forth. So, like, I really like the top part of this team. It's just I wish the Trick Room option was a bit better.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about the electric type, like defensively, because you have Moltres, Inteleon, and Braviary who are all weak to it, but then you have Amoonguss, Excadrill, and then Pikachu, which Pikachu might actually be really nice on this team, protecting Moltres.
No, I mean the Lightning Rod is really nice, especially when you have dual flying plus the offensive water.
Nobody's mentioned the. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you can go. We've talked.
I'm not a huge fan of the Braviary. You mentioned some stuff about it, but I don't know how often specifically slow Braviary using Tailwind is going to be something that you ever really want to do with this team, because if you're wanting to go fast, you're normally going to be bringing your Inteleon or your Excadrill, and you'll already be fast. So I'm not a huge fan of the Braviary. I really do like the Inteleon though, especially because it learns both the priority moves. So it could proc a weakness policy on Moltres or Excadrill if he had one for some reason, or even if you were running it on Amoonguss. I don't think that he has offensive stats at all, but I would have to check. I don't use a lot of Amoonguss. Or Gigalith even. You can
see the stats on the screen.
Its second highest stat is its attack stats, so
well, there we go.
Speaks to me saying Amoonguss is an offensive Mon.
The Gigalith as well, though. He's already got obviously great defense and great special defense while he's in the sand. So you can just kind of, even though he's slow, you can just kind of go to town, Dynamax him, hit him with an Aqua Jet, and so that's something. I don't really have a way to end that, but that was something I found interesting. I like the Inteleon.
I think my brother had that core season 2. He had Inteleon, Excadrill, Gigalith, and that exact thing happened. We were Aqua Jetting the Gigalith because it's super bulky, and with the sand it gets a Spidef boost, and sometimes you get Trick Room up and it just goes to town. So like Gigalith is definitely, I think it's better than T-Tar in draft, in my opinion. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I haven't used T-Tar myself yet, but I could see where that point comes from. I mean, it really not having to deal with the 4 times weak to fighting is really nice. And Gigalith, I think, also just is bulkier
and slower, like a lot slower.
Oh yeah. Which is why I will harp on it again. I wish there was a better Trick Room setter here than Malamar. I think that option, because I really like Gigalith in this format, and just not being able to aid it as well as I would have liked, I think is why I put the team just under half for me personally. I have it at my number 9. But once you get to the middle, it's a little bit interchangeable. But still, I think this is a middle of the road team. I think I really like some of the offensive options. But that being said, its bulk outside of Gigalith and Amoonguss is a little questionable. And again, Ice Resist Inteleon is not something that you usually want to go with.
I feel like this is a team where you're gonna bring the top like 4 or 5 each game.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're gonna bring Moltres, Amoonguss, Excadrill, and Gigalith. It's just what do you bring? What else do you bring?
Inteleon, Alcremie, Pikachu. Combination of those three.
Yeah, don't disrespect Purloin. I have seen
I mean,
Purloin do a lot of damage. Mental damage, not actual damage, but
Building off all that, and this is something I'll probably say a few times throughout this video, is that Dusclops was just undrafted. He's just there. Stakataka, just there, and there are a lot of points. But there's a lot of these teams Chandelure as well. But there's a lot of these teams that I saw where they had like kind of a trick room mode, but it seemed like they were scared to like try to draft one of the premier setters. And I get that there are a lot of points, like I said, but then the trick room mode just kind of looks unusable. And I agree with what you were saying earlier that the trick room mode looks a little unusable to me anyway.
No, I definitely saw that as well. That like a lot of teams just like only drafted one trick room setter, and it's usually like one of those below 8 points. It's like, okay, cool, you've got the mode, but is it going to be consistent? If you're going to spend a respectable amount of points, I mean, you could still probably finagle your points a little bit more to get something that's a little bit more solid in that aspect. So you are confident you can set trick room to support your mons, as opposed to like, well, this mon does it, so we'll bank on it doing so.
Braviary is 12 points, and Dusclops. How many points is Malamar, to be honest?
Malamar's 6.
Man, I feel like, I don't know if we're supposed to make specific suggestions, but I really feel like the Braviary...
We can bash them all we want.
Well, fair enough. Well, I was talking like in the positive sense of like...
Oh. Well, I just wanted to bash Mick.
You mentioned Chandelure earlier. I think Shandy can fit on this team decently well. I mean, if you somehow like switch Malamar, Turtonator, and find points elsewhere to fit it on,
yeah.
I mean, you are adding some one-pointers, but
I think you could drop the Braviary. Do you guys disagree?
Again, I think with having Defiant, I think it does have some merit on this team. But
outside of
that, I feel like it's...
I don't see a lot of use for Braviary, because Moltres is your premier flying type.
Right.
Especially... Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, yeah, so you could probably move Braviary up and like Turtonator probably to fit Shandy.
And if you do pick up Chandelure, you are less physical. Like you do get more special, which makes the Defiant... I mean, Defiant's still great, but it makes Intimidate less good against you.
Alright, so then as far as ranking, I kind of want to put this one below the other team we just did, mostly because I think that there's untapped potential here in a Trick Room mode, and I think if that can get revived somehow by a trade, free agent, whatever, this team can be a lot scarier than what it is.
I still think this is better than Colorado, so I would put it like as a 5, maybe a fringe 6 point team, but I think they're relatively close. It was just like one thing is that I had this team, I think, decently high initially in the rankings, and they just continued to fall down, but I'm not going to make it fall down much further.
No, this team's good. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Excadrill, Gigalith, Moltres, Amoonguss is a VGC level core that you can play just on the ladder. So you can't disrespect that of how strong that core is. And Inteleon has impressed me every single time I've seen it used. So.
Well, you haven't seen me use Inteleon then. It's bad. What I use it anyway. I'm just bad.
Alright,
so I don't think it's worth 13 points, but I respect it enough.
I lean toward agreeing with Spades. I think that I like the Cobalions as much as I agree that it's more of a middle of the road team. I kind of like the Cobalions. I ranked it a little higher, I guess, than you guys. But I agree with Spades that I think that this team's a little worse than theirs.
It's not that it's worse. It's just that it has so much more than what it could be doing.
So, like several empty slots. I think that's pretty big.
Like Turtonator is not supported well here at all. Like we didn't mention it we didn't mention it at all because Turtonator needs Trick Room. It needs a policy most of the time, or well, I guess it can Shell Smash, but your stealth match
Even
with
then, what do you got?
36 base
Speeding?
speed. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the one other thing that I was going to say is that, like Colorado, this team only has one mon above 100 speed, and if there's no sand, this team is slow as hell. But also, again, crappy trick room mode. So what are you doing?
Yeah, I think 4 is a nice average then.
I'll concede. Yeah.
Fair enough.
All right. Now on to the next one. All right, and for our third team, we have the Detroit Dracozolts, coached by Max Watts, who just fell short of playoffs last season, and he's looking to make a push back into the postseason. He's got what I would consider the bulkiest team in the league.
That was about to be my first comment as well.
This team is so bulky.
I think it's the only other team besides myself that has like an average defensive stat over 100.
114. Well, no, sorry. 101.
Yeah, it just barely gets there.
I mean, when you have an Avalugg and a Regirock, it's kind of like, how are you not above 100? But I really like this team.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan as well.
Much so that I think this is my number 2.
This is like the most fun team, in my opinion. Like from looking at all of them, I would have the most fun with this team.
I would like it to be slightly faster. I feel like that's just going to be a common theme for a lot of these teams. But I mean, the trick room mode, finally we have a good one. Despite it only being Zong being the setter, but like I think Zong's one of the best setters in draft. I absolutely love Zong. And pair that next to Regirock, one of the best abusers for it. This is a good team.
Yeah, and you have Butterfree to redirect for the Bronzong. You have Grimmsnarl for fake out and screens. And Umbreon, which has been overachieving at every level. Just so bulky. The damage reduction's great. Yawn support, can heal itself.
It's a bit annoying that I don't have a whole lot to add on that front because you guys just kind of had all the same points, especially about the Bronzong and Regirock. What do you guys think that specifically Zapdos and Entei do on this team? Like, what is their role, would you say?
Definitely.
I think, Zapdos is probably going to be one of the more primary outside of Trick Room Dynamax options. I mean, Entei as well. For whatever reason that he would want to run Bulldoze on Entei for Regirock. Could also, I mean, I remember season 2 of Thwackey, Prime was running Bronzong Entei with just the Trick Room Bulldoze, just to make Entei get the weakest policy, but also be, if the opponent has a very fast team like myself, that doesn't want to be in Trick Room, Entei can theoretically go under with a Bulldoze. One thing I'm going to be keeping my eye out is an over/under on how many times he brings Swagger Grimmsnarl plus Avalugg. We'll see if anybody gets caught by that.
I did. Go ahead.
Oh no, go. You're good.
I did want to mention about Avalugg. Actually, thanks for reminding me that if Avalugg is carrying a weakness policy, that Bronzong is not only a good partner for Regirock, but also Avalugg as well, because you can under Trick Room anyway, steal moves.
Well, you got Rock Tomb is what you would use, but
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you don't want to miss, you could also use this Gyro Ball.
I mean, Self Gyro Ball probably wouldn't do a whole lot to it.
Yeah, I mean, because it's that physically defensive, and also Avalugg's just slower.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking originally.
Why whittle, like, kind of tweak the speed stats to get Bronzong slower, but that's not that hard to do. So,
I mean, you could easily again just throw the Macho Brace on that.
Yeah, and who well, I guess neither of you were in Rillaboom with our Alexa, but Milotic was a pain to play against because all it did was coil, recover, and hypnosis. And pair that with Grimmsnarl and Umbreon, like 2 really good damage reducers.
I mean, one thing then, because this team is so bulky, is that how much it baits the opponent to bring Taunt. So I guess not many people did that versus Alexa when she was Melodic.
No, that team was hyper offense though. So like you had to prepare for hyper offense, and then Milotic came and destroyed you. That's what.
So like me with Chansey and Thwackey.
Yeah, basically. Oh no, that was
one more note. about the Bronzong with the Avalugg and the Regirock, and sorry to just keep going on this, but I think it's really cool that not only, like, obviously everyone knows Bronzong has Levitate, but the heat proof as well, you could run if Regirock was bad and you planned on just bringing Avalugg. In the sense of if you're running Ally Switch on it. I don't know if Max loves Ally Switch or hates it.
Oh, he does.
But perfect. Well, there you go. You can run the heat proof. It's not a resistance necessarily, but the Levitate doesn't help the Avalugg.
Well,
I don't know. I thought that was just like a little cool
in general on Bronzong. Levitate and Heat Proof are really strong, especially for skill types. Like you have ground weakness is gone, fire moves are now neutral, and I know Big Mac Zach is somewhere. He wants this thing to have a power herb. He will beg.
Meteor Beam.
Yes.
I know that set all too well. One of my last single seasons, I had a Sun team, and turn 1, I got hit in the face with a Meteor Beam on my Torkoal, and then I cried. So at least I won't forget that option. We'll see if other teams remember it.
And that's from Bronzong?
Yeah, Bronzong gets Meteor Beam.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, that was sad.
Does this team have a third Trick Room setter? I see, obviously.
Duskull is the second, and that's it.
How bulky is Duskull? 40, no, it's 90. Oh, that's actually not bad.
Wow, holy crap. Yeah, that's
Other than
actually...
the 20 HP, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
I thought it would be like 70
on
each.
I would be more curious about a calc, because 20 HP is not good.
No. Really brings the average down.
You mentioned before we started talking about any of the teams that your number 2 team, and now you said it's this, you had mostly negative things to say about it, despite it being your number 2.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, actually, no. This is my number 2. Okay, so one thing, again, being a person who likes to look at types, this does not have an electric resist, so that's a big thing. The immediate offense is a little bit on the lacking side. Like I said, outside of Trick Room, I mean, Dynamax Zapdos and Entei are nice, but they're also not the most offensive. And Rock Resist Song is decent, but I would like to have another thing that isn't Machop potentially on there just for the Avalugg and Entei and Zapdos, since a decent amount of the offense is Rock Weak. There's just a lot of pressure on Zong, as much as I love it. I wish there was something else that could potentially alleviate that. So I know we've been kind of singing the praises of Umbreon. I'm not huge on needing 2 dark type support bonds. So if that could have been, something else, maybe like a fighting type that's better than Machop, I'd be pushed as number 1.
Yeah, I saw like a weird fighting hole with this team. Like you have Zapdos, which can resist fighting, and I guess Butterfree, but like most of the time your opponent can just use like close combat, Brick Break, whatever they want. Brick Break's gonna come a lot, by the way. So, Umbreon
also
the
like vice versa. What does this team really do against opposing fat normals?
Yeah, you got Machop.
Machop is gonna destroy Snorlax. Yeah, I'll take that back.
Honestly, though, wait, what is this? 80 base attack with Guts.
And almost the same speed as Legs.
I believe Girder is still available, by the way.
Girder would be nice.
And again, speaking of getting hit by big fighting types, there's a 16-point extra Trick Room setter that is available that is immune to fighting types, but he does already have Duskull, so fair enough to that.
Yeah, I don't see I don't know if you can really change much with this team other than changing a lot of what it is. This team is built to be bulky, and a lot of the pieces do work really well together. So this is at least this is like a 9.
Yeah, I'd put it there.
8.5, but you guys obviously both have 9, so fair enough to that.
I don't know what we would consider a 10, to be honest, but this team's close to it.
It's too hard Trick Room for people are going to be able to run bulk, a lot of bulk against this, and fair enough to say that this team will still be bulkier, but that's and again, like you said, the Zapdos, the Entei, it's not all in on Trick Room, and it does have the Grimmsnarl as well. So yeah, I mean, yeah. I as far as hard Trick Room teams, I think that still being what I would consider anyway, more or less a hard Trick Room team, it does alleviate a lot of the weaknesses that those teams have in draft in particular. So I agree. I guess I didn't really have a point there, but
All good.
I kind of convinced myself off of a point I was arguing, I think.
I'm just waiting for fake tears, Zapdos, to kind of just blow someone up when they're not ready for it too. Like that's where I see the immediate offense from. You got fake tears. Go to town.
I love Grim. I love Bronzong. This team's good.
Yeah, so
Yep. Big fan.
Definitely one of the top teams in the division. We'll see how Max performs with it.
I think he's my final opponent in the regular season, so hopefully that's a playoff preview. Otherwise, pain.
I think I have him week 6, so that'll be fun.
Yay.
All right, next we have the reigning Season 3 Thwacky champion who got bumped up this season, JP Koala and the Kansas City Komalas. And there is a very familiar face in this team from comparing it to last season. That's Drifblim and Terrain. So definitely very skilled with that core. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on this team?
The first thing that kind of jumped out to me is that this was a lot of like two-mon cores that were kind of just slapped together. I mean, you've got a sun aspect, you've got the terrain aspect, like you mentioned, you've got a Sneasel plus Mudsdale beat up strat. Lycanroc's kind of just chilling. Clefairy next to Thundurus is kind of nice. I don't fully see how the team like meshes as a whole, but there's definitely a lot of varied options that can be done on this team.
Finally, something that he didn't mention that I can mention is Sneasel can also Ice Shard the Drifblim and not get faked out.
That's true.
And the Venusaur.
Yeah.
And the Thundurus. And the Mudsdale.
He can just hit everything.
Wait, does that mean... So you say all these... does that mean there's a slight ice weakness here then? If you're mentioning all these things weak to ice.
I mean, there's a Ninetales and a Slowbro, but it should not be failed to mention that... Well, Lycanroc doesn't resist ice. The 4 of the top 6 mons, at least point-wise, are weak to ice on this team. But again, Ninetales, Slowbro, that's enough of a resist for me. But I will say is not enough of a resist for me is that Sneasel is the ghost resist. Sure, it can run Eviolite, and it has an okay special defense stat, but that's not a ghost resist.
No.
Yeah, so I don't know if this team plays Spectria or not, but that'll be fun.
Yeah, I will say though is I'm a big fan of Thundurus in draft. Like
Same.
Dragapult is my #1 pick in draft all the time. And if you want to talk about like a Swiss Army knife to say, Thundurus is a Swiss Army knife in draft.
Oh yeah.
Support,
I love running
and
support.
Special. Like I really like using Thundurus. I like Eerie Impulse for the most part because that move's funny when people can't do damage to me. But the fact that this thing is defiant, so you can't intimidate it, you can't lower its stats in general. You have to guess which type it is, or which is it special, physical, or support. So that's not fun.
Or mixed.
Guess. Yeah, or mixed as well. Gets setup moves and it makes Fly actually useful because like in prior gens, you couldn't really run Fly because Fly is not generally a good move. But whenever you add Dynamax, Max Airstream becomes a problem for most teams. Like so that kind of gave Thundurus a buff this gen, as well as the speed changes, the dynamic speed changes with Scary Face and with Thunder Wave.
And Electro Web.
Yes, it gets Electro Web too.
I used Thundery last season, and it's such a good support mon. I used support way more than offensive last season because obviously Solgaleo was not allowed this season, and he didn't draft it next to Metagross. But I mean, just the sheer options it can do to just support a team is really, really nice. The one thing that I do think is missing as an aspect that Thundurus can aid is being a alongside Dynamax Booster is that since you can boost speed, as you said, with Max Airstream having Max Knuckle, it's really nice to pair next to a physical threat. And there's not really one of those on this team outside of, I guess, like Lycanroc. So that's something I would have, I guess, preferred on this team, is to see some sort of like maybe like a Gelder or some decent speed physical breaker that you can pair next to it.
Yeah.
Going back to and go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go right ahead.
Just referring back to the lack of a ghost resist. Sorry. Going back to the lack of a ghost resist, something that I've noticed and was also part of my success last season, despite having the exact same problem, is that in general, I think when you do have so many strong 2-mon cores, it lets you be hyper aggressive a lot of the time, and I think that to some extent, I wouldn't say gets rid of the weakness, gets rid of those sorts of weaknesses, but perhaps allows you to circumvent them. Now, at the same time, Dragapult and Zacian are a lot faster than the stuff on this team, so maybe it was just luck on that end. But that was something I was thinking about. I was wondering your thoughts there.
I think the speed tiers on this team are actually pretty nice. Having 4 mons at 100 or above, and they're all relatively usable. But also having a good slow core for the Trick Room. So I can run both those modes really well to get around that. So I see what you're saying on there. Plus, you also have Follow Me Clefairy. So if it's that big of a threat, you can also just force a redirect and then kill it with like Drifblim or Sneasel. Granted, I kind of would prefer maybe a better Ghost Killer. Thundurus can do it. So maybe I'm just harping on that a little too much. But
Weakness Policy Drifblim's your Ghost
Your
Killer.
point's your point. It's like it's a fair point. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, Spade.
Weakness Policy Drifblim is your Ghost Killer. That's about it. What is stopping me from clicking Snarl against this team?
Thundurus.
Okay, so that's another thing that I noticed too, is a lot of these main attackers are weak to Snarl outside of Thundurus, and if you're relying that much on Thundurus, that's gonna more or less hurt your team's effectiveness overall.
Fair enough to that. What do you guys think overall then on the team?
Initially my ranking was actually kind of low, and I think looking more into it, I might move it up a little bit. I think at the very least probably like a 6.
Yeah, I think 6 is reasonable. It feels like a team that like has like good duos. I'm just ready to see how they mesh together. Like Clefairy and Thundurus, I think can mesh with the Sun team, the Terrain Tailwind team, and even with some of the Trick Room stuff. But it feels like a very duo team. It's like if you have one Mon, you need the other. So Venusaur needs Ninetales, Drifblim needs Lele, Mudsdale needs Sneasel, and Slowbro. So
Would you guys say that relying on a bunch of duos is a weakness then? Because I kind of see it as a strength. The idea of having a bunch of different duos makes it difficult.
I hate
to prepare.
how you're forced to bring the duo.
Yeah, that's
my only
where I
complaint
kind of talked. Is that we see the duos. I don't really see how it meshes as a team where you can kind of super go outside those duos. I mean, you definitely can in some aspects, but it's not like the easiest thing. Or you're just kind of more inclined to rely on those duos. It reminds me a lot of Prime's Season 2 Thwacky team that just also had a lot of duos, and that is if you can find a lead or whatever that can kind of just check those duos, you're kind of golden.
That's fair. I had this team at like a 6.5. Sounds like you guys had a 6, so fair enough to all that.
Yeah, I think down with a 6. It's a good team overall, like definitely a good team, but we'll see how Jay meshes these teams together. I know Jay is a very defensive player, so like with switches and late Dynamaxes, so if he can play into that strength with this team, I think he'll be all right.
Okay.
All right, up next we have a new face to the league, and winning the #1 pick of the draft, we have Strife and the Lake City Linoones. And we see that first pick was none other than Dragapult.
What a jerk.
I'm pretty sure, like, I know you probably wanted Dragapult because you had it last season, and I wanted it this season too because it's like, well, that's obviously my first pick. There's no way I was getting it, but going first, it went first in every division.
And fair to that, like it's absolutely insane. As much as we talked about Thundurus, this guy is a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since a lot of teams don't like to really draft really good ghost resists, just having one of the best offensive ghosts out there is a really nice boon to have. But as we go into this team, I think one of the few and only boons on this team. So yeah, the triple steal, I would be okay with since Steely Spirit. It's cool. I just wish the steals were better to, go off of that. I don't like Corviknight in doubles. I don't really care for it in singles either. But I don't really like how this team came together.
Yeah, to the point about the steel types, Heatran and Corviknight do not share weaknesses.
Yeah.
Which is like, whenever I'm looking at this type chart, I was like, wait, why do I not see any red, just all green? It's like, oh, they cover each other, which is weird.
Well, it's also funny because, like, okay, so you know how steels are like one of the best defensive typing since they have like the most resistances. If you take the steels off this team, it still doesn't have any red, which is insane to me. So, like, that's one thing I at least have to give props is that you've covered your defenses very nicely. That being said, I don't really care for the offense on the team. I wish there was a better setup threat outside of Dragapult for Volcarona for the Rage Powder. Sylveon's decent. Not having really, I don't believe there's a way to proc Anger Point on Crook, so it's probably just more of like a support Intimidate.
Yeah.
There's a Trick Room mode, I guess, with Jellicent, but the speed's not exactly that slow. I mean, your slowest mon's Wigglytuff, and as much as I love Wigglytuff, it's my mascot. I don't draft it.
Traitor.
Top 3 Wigglytuff facts.
It's a cheerleader. It's not a fighter.
Fair enough. Worth noting about the it kind of crosses over a couple things that we've mentioned, but notably the having triple steal, but then also the weaknesses, the very few red on the overall weaknesses, is that he drafted 2 mons with immunity abilities, and each of those immunity abilities correspond to where he has 2 prominent mons on his team or more that are weak to that type. So he's got the Jellicent with the water absorb, and he's got Heatran and Volcarona, obviously, that are weak to water. And then Heatran, of course, has Flash Fire, and he's got the Corviknight and the Rotombo and the Berserker, all who are weak to fire. And I don't know that really constitutes anything.
Plus the dual water. Yeah.
I hate like just talking about Dragapult, but like that's the only thing I can see like this team working. There's a lot of weird pieces that don't really fit together.
Yeah. Because like one of the things you'd really like for Sylveon, I mean, I guess it does because there's a Dragapult here, is the quick attack into weakness policy. So I guess that's also something for Dragapult. But one of the things for me, I think even Strife said during the draft, is that there's kind of a lacking of the physical offense on this team outside of like Kirk and Pult. I'm talking more about Berserker more than I think I ever had in my life. So we'll see if that comes to more than like 3 games.
It does have fake out, and with an assault vest, you can make it work. I believe.
Yeah, you have 2 other steel types that are 2 of your top 3 most expensive mons. Are you really bringing Berserker over them?
The only thing I'm worried about though is those speed tiers. Like they are not set up for Dragapult Airstream, and they're not set up for Trick Room.
Nope.
And using Dragapult Airstream isn't the greatest thing because it's non-stab and Dragapult's already really fast, but just
like the abusers and Tailwind is kind of just all right.
By not being set up for Trick Room, would you agree or disagree that if you had a week that you wanted to bring Trick Room, that it would be a good way of getting away with that in the idea that they're not going to. Well, I guess they're going to be putting bulk anyway, since it's not like you're outspeeding them. So never mind that idea. I was going to point out that Jillishan learns Trick Room, and all the mons are kind of slow, like you said, but they're just going to bring bulk anyway. So
Yeah, this
I
team
could
has a
see
little
if
bit of like damage reduction with Will-O-Wisp and Intimidate. I don't see a lot of like special. Like I guess Crocodile gets Snarl, but
that's it.
you're gonna bring in a Assault Vest every week. Like,
Yeah, and also probably just snarl against this team.
yeah. Although
Um,
Corviknight can bounce back opposing Intimidates and opposing Snarls, so at least there's that. Like Mirror Armor is a better clear body for sure, but
oh, totally.
it's just more of like we threw a bunch of ingredients into a pot and we expect them to create this basically this cake.
Yeah, it's just I don't. This is one of the teams that I just didn't really see much of a thought process to. Maybe just above me, but yeah, I just the team compression. I don't. Something irks me, and I'm not fully sure.
I think that he got derailed a bunch. I think he wanted to pick Colossal round 2, and he
And
was
it got
very close
sniped.
actually.
I was gonna
It
mention
got
that.
it got sniped by the Applins, but looking at the other 5 teams before he would get it again, I don't think any of these teams would have picked or were planning on picking Colossal. Looking at their first pick and then at their second picks.
Yeah, Colossal only works with Dragapult. I've mentioned this to a lot of people. I don't like using Colossal outside of a Dragapult, so I think we'll talk about the Applins with that. So,
Mm-hmm.
but that being said, you can't underestimate Dragapult. And you got
Oh,
Redirection
easy.
with Volcarona, you have Intimidate, you have Will-O-Wisp, Light Screen. So like there's a lot of play with this team. It's not ideal. And
It's another one of those. Let's see what you can do
mhm.
teams. It's yeah. There's nothing that's super. I think obvious as modes outside of like quick attack and a pull.
So if we're
Or
going with a number, I think a 2 or a 3 is where I think it should be. I know it's a little
yeah,
harsh because I think I've
I
heard
put it
Shred
as
is
a
a very
3.
good player, but we're not here to judge the player. We're here to judge the team.
I
Yeah,
agree
I'd
with
settle
3
on a
as well.
3. Yeah.
I would like to see a match won by getting off a Flash Fire switch in or a Flash Fire ally switch or something. But I think he's just relying too much on stuff like that. Like you guys mentioned, not a whole lot of offense.
No.
Well, I'm rambling, but I agree with 3.
Alright. Alright, next up we have the Long Island Goomys, coached by Silly Willy, and we have a horse and son.
So yeah, this team. I normally hate like hard weather teams. But weirdly, I like this team. What they were talking a lot about how much they like Carbink as just a value Trick Room setter. So if it does the job, I mean, there's plenty here to abuse Trick Room with Glacier Torkoal, and I love Max Gastrodon.
Mm-hmm.
The Sun Core, no Venu, but having 3 supportive grasses plus Zard's probably fine. Plus you have the Heliolisk. Maybe a little bit too dipped in both those modes, but they're both varied from each other, so I can see this team working.
I see this being an 11-mon team.
Yeah.
Like, I can see every single mon in this team being brought, which is a good thing to have. And also being able to go Trick Room or Charizard Max Airstream. Like, you have both sides of that coin, and the typings here are, I think, the most interesting, though.
It definitely looks weird at first glance, but it works for the most part. Again, typings are a little skewed just because of having 3 grasses, but
3
having
grasses, 2 fires, and 2 grounds.
Yeah. Having 2 really good ground types to be rock resists for your top 3, I think is very nice on this team. Plus having Again, the 3 grasses for ground resist for Torkoal. I think the team's supporting core really does help out the top offensive picks. So it's weird, but I like the team.
What do you think that or would you agree or disagree that that Glastrier is awkward here? And if you disagree, like why is that? The point I'm bringing is obviously Sun is not great for Glastrier, and it'll just get slapped. Obviously you're also going pretty hard on the Trick Room, which is cool. But I don't know. Well, hold on. I don't think Torkoal sets Trick Room exactly. But no.
It doesn't.
I'm off my rocker right now, but I don't know that he's like the best Trick Room setter for Glastrier.
It's Galarian, Slowbro, and Carbink, which again are not ideal. Like a lot of teams went for a lower point Trick Room setters. I mean, what even Slowbro's at what 10 points? That's 9. There's at least 2.
The Slowbro.
Yeah, there's at least 2 setters on this team, as opposed to most teams only really having 1. But yeah, they seem to be willing to go for Carbink to be that dedicated Trick Room setter. And if it works, it works. I mean, both are weak to steel. But yeah, I could definitely see the point of that. Had there just been a better dedicated Trick Room setter, that Glastrier would be so much better on the team. You could maybe finagle that with condensing your 3 grass types maybe into 2 or just 1 really good one to aid that. But I don't think it's impossible for Glastrier to succeed. And plus, with Torkoal Glastrier, I mean, there's a lot of teams that on Trick Room that have both those mons. Glastrier, when you max it, just sets Hailstorm anyways to get rid of Sun. So if you're using it, you don't have to worry about Sun too long, I'd imagine.
Fair.
I do have to say though, you mentioned about having Glastrier and Torkoal in Trick Room. That is very difficult to do. Getting both of them in Trick Room, because you have to lead one of your Trick Room setters. I'm guessing you lead Tangrowth, which I hate Tangrowth in draft a lot. So that's a topic for another thing, but you're relying on setting up Trick Room, and then you have your sweepers in the back, which is normally how people play it. But this team, I feel like, can't take advantage of that as others, because Carbink doesn't really do a whole lot else other than set Trick Room. Slowbro can, but and people are gonna run safety goggles against you, and they're gonna use special attacks against Tangrowth, and Tangrowth will die.
Yep.
And then you're gonna get taunted, or your Carbink's gonna die, or your Slowbro's gonna die. So it's a lot harder to set Trick Room with this team as opposed to one of the other teams we've seen. That one.
Oh, totally.
When I had originally mentioned that, I had forgotten the Slowbro entirely, really, and I just kept thinking that Torkoal was their primary Trick Room setter, and I kind of had just I think I misevaluated this team and missed a lot on this team. I hadn't really thought about Carbink that much. I thought it was just like, oh yeah, okay, 4 points, and then I just completely missed the Slowbro. But I do agree with the points you made there. We haven't mentioned the Garchomp, but I really like the Garchomp. It seems maybe awkward at first, but people are going to be setting weather. I think there was 2 people who had a sand mode, and well, those are the main 2 things that I have to say about it. But I wonder what you guys have to say.
You have Sun, and you have things that deter Ice type moves. So Garchomp clearly has a place there.
Oh yeah, and like I said, as a rock resist, that and Gastro are going to be very pivotal pieces to this team. Whether you're running offensive with Sun, or if you're going to go Trick Room, Gastrodon's totally fine.
No, I'm a big fan of Heliolisk. I have done a lot of dumb things with Heliolisk. Primarily, I like Glare a lot. It just 100% accurate. What you can paralyze ground types with Glare, which is great. 109 special attack, same as Charizard's with Solar Power, and it's a little bit faster. Hits very hard. So obviously you don't get the stab boost with like some move or like with fire moves in Sun like Charizard does. So Charizard probably still Charizard still hits harder, but Heliolisk I'm a big fan of. And especially this team doesn't want to run Focus Sash on a lot of mons. So Heliolisk seems like a perfect focus sash spawn.
That's
Yeah, the team doesn't really have like a need elsewhere for it, so I think it's pretty easy to put it on there, especially since Carbink gets sturdy too.
Yeah,
I do really. Go ahead.
I was gonna mention about Leafeon as like we mentioned Venusaur earlier not being here, but there's another chlorophyll user. And
There's two.
It's faster than Venusaur.
oh, there's two. Tangrowth is a chlorophyll user, yes. Offensive Tangrowth, please do that.
Sword stance. Sword stance.
He's also fast in Trick Room. Like it's cool that he can do both modes.
But I've seen Leafeon do work in, well, at least the recent Speed Tour I saw Leafeon do good work. So I can't talk bad about it yet.
Does he get much coverage outside of grass? I mean, I know it gets Weather Ball, but obviously
It
it's
gets
special attacks. That's not great.
Iron Tail, so it gets Max Steel Spike.
Okay.
That's the only one I knew off the top of my head. It gets Grass and gets Steel. I don't know what other coverage it gets, but
I know the evolutions don't exactly get coverage.
no. They get like Blessed in one attribute, and some evolutions got more Blessed than others.
Mm-hmm.
Leafeon's not a terrible evolution. Like, Chlorophyll's a busted ability, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And 110 attack is not anything to laugh at, but the 65 Spadef is.
With the 65 HP too.
Yeah.
It's faster Tangrowth.
Alright, so as far as a rating, I think 5 fits pretty well, maybe even 1 down. Lots of pieces, very difficult to pilot this team for sure.
I would put this more, I think, closer to 6. I think it's. I can see this team working.
I also had a
Albeit
6.
awkward Trick Room.
Okay.
I honestly had like a 6.5 to be honest, but I agree with him on the 6.
Yeah, I think lots of immediate offensive pressure, despite having speed tiers starting at 109.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, we have 2 Chlorophyll users,
Yeah.
so that helps.
All right.
And 50 under Chlorophyll is a lot more than it seems, since VGC is played in like it's more than 100 speed. Since VGC is played at level 50, the EVs have such a huge effect on stats. So it's closer to having, instead of like 100 speed, I would say it's closer to having like 120, 130 speed.
I mean, like max speed in Sun like outspeeds Inteleon pretty easily.
Yep.
I think when I look at that speed, it can outspeed. Like the thing I look at is can it get faster than 200, which is what Spectre's speed is, and I think it does.
It's faster than Dragonbolt.
Okay, yeah, it can be faster. Okay, yeah, that's exactly what
we're talking, and we're talking about Tangrowth, right?
Yeah, Tangrowth at plus 2 speed, max speed gets 224.
This is exactly what I was talking about. Like the 50 speed looks like it's just going to be 100, or at least that's how your brain works immediately. But it's, like I said, because it's level 50, the EVs matter so much that the speed doubles after that, and it's just crazy.
And then Leafeon outspeeds everything.
Mm-hmm.
Even Venusaur.
Yes.
Alright, let's move on to the next one. Alright, next up we have a recruit who joined this league. We have Junebug and the Maine Red Clawitzers. And the first 3 mons we see is something that a lot of VGC players will tell you is really good, and that is a Fire, Water, Grass core. That's a good core.
I like this team as well, at least the top 6, considering also half of them were on my Season 2 Wacky Championship team. So I love Lax. Really like pairing that with like Cart, so you get like 2 really good bulks on both sides. I will say I'm not a super fan of the bottom 5. I've never been a fan of Hail, especially if it's Mr. Mime, Galar, and Arctivish as the abusers. But I think the top 6 can definitely get like most of the work done.
You don't like Runerigus with the Snorlax?
I mean, it's a Ghost Trick Room setter. That's fine. Unless if I'm missing some way to pass a fun ability into Wandering Spirit.
Yeah. Well, you can ally switch into. Well, no, this won't work. Never mind, because it's a fighting move. But well, you can ally switch as a Ghost to help avoid fighting moves. And you can just ally switch to give people Wandering Spirits. Originally, I was thinking with fighting types, but you're just gonna avoid them. But I do think he's a good partner with the Snorlax.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
It's
we're
got
missing
good
the
physical
huge power
defense.
mon to give Runerigus huge power, but other than that,
I think, yeah, it's just here for a TR.
There are also a lot of good dragon type mons that are still in, and I agree with what you were saying about the Snow. I think that he drafted Snow as kind of like a meme as far as like the idea of the team looks like pretty good on the top, like you said, and so I think he kind of just drafted Snow at the end for fun, or at least that's what it seemed in the chat. I don't know for sure, but the Druddigon can definitely be upgraded. Dragon Knight's still available. He's not absolutely perfect, but he's something. I haven't really looked that much at the ice weakness versus resist. Latios is available, and I don't think that you have a Psychic Mon. There's a Psychic Mon on this team.
Mr. Mime's
there's
right
Mime.
there.
Yeah, there's Mime Galar, I guess. That's fair enough to that. Salamence is available. There's a lot of really good dragon types available.
you just hate
And
Druddigon
he's
so
got.
much.
Well,
Like, you don't
tell
say
me
anything good about it. It's just
Well, fair enough. Maybe what am I wrong about? What am I missing on Druddigon?
so
Is
48
he
base
is he
speed
really
and
busted?
120 base attack. That's
And
about all I
respectable
can,
bulk, I guess, yeah.
that's all I can see with it. But and sheer force actually, so it can do a lot of damage. Not being a Dynamax, obviously, but if Snorlax is your Dynamax, you can have a Trick Room game where you bring Hitmontop Runerigus to get Trick Room up. Druddigon Snorlax be the back end. Now, granted, that sounds much worse than bringing the top three, but it's an option.
I think Drud gets decent coverage, so
it's
it can
a
do stuff.
dragon type. It usually does.
Yeah, it's not very powerful coverage outside of like the main stuff like EQ, Superpower, Iron Tail. Outside of that's a lot of base 80 and lower.
Yeah.
I
But
really like. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just say the Firewater Grass Core though is definitely what highlights this, and then Crobat with Tailwind, just a solid combination. Kartana being one of the one of the highest attack stats in the game, if not the highest. I don't know what the highest is. And then you got Rotom, which is a mid speed, which pairs great with Tailwind, and then Tapu Fini. So I'm a big fan of that core. It's well, Kartana I don't like mostly because of the Spadef. So like it's not a good switch in a lot of the time, but other than that, I think those three are what's going to carry this team.
I mean, one of the things that I also really like, I think a lot of people sleep on Dynamax Crobat. I really like how its dual stabs boost special attack and speed, and you pair that to like let's say a Specs Fini.
You're
They can
speaking
be
from
really
experience
dangerous.
here.
I definitely did kind of body bag Duck season 2, so with that, I think Dynamax Crobat about the same amount of times I used the support. I really like its versatility and it's good value.
Mm-hmm. And
I really like the
speed.
Hitmon.
Yep.
All right, go back to praising Hitmontop because I like Hitmontop also.
Sorry about that. I really like the Hitmontop here in particular. Bullet Punch and Mach Punch. You can run weakness policy on Tapu Fini, which I guess we're spoiling here.
No, you can't.
It's not weak to steel. It's not weak to fighting.
Okay, yeah, because of the water. Sorry about that.
You can do it with Kartana.
Kartana and then Snorlax with the
just
Mach
kill
Punch.
it.
No,
I mean, like you can get your drain, yeah.
It's got 131 defense.
Well, I thought you were saying like weakness policy the Tapu Fini by hitting it with Kartana. I'm like, yeah, just leaf blade.
Oh yeah,
but no,
it
gets Giga
or not
Drain
leaf
if I
blade,
recall
leaf blade the
correctly.
Fini. Sounds like
Yeah,
a good
you can
idea.
Giga Drain it.
We can discharge the Rotom, which I will say you've shown me this way. The telepathy plus that is quite beautiful. It's a work of art.
I really, like I said, I really like this top core. I think it really supports each other very, very well. I wish there was slightly better low tier support.
Mr. Mime gets fake out. and can remove screens on Switch in.
Yay.
Icy Wind.
I
But
mean,
you
I'm
have
not denying
Crobat
it. It can do
anyway,
things, but
so
like you could also theoretically say Vespiquen does stuff because it gets beat up.
that's a fair
The
point.
mime the mime does remove screens on switch in, but isn't the main point of running Arctivish that he yeah, he's got the slush rush, but he's got Aurora Veil, and I was meaning to mention this earlier, but I'd forgotten. But if you are committed to the hail, Dracozolt's available, and he doesn't get
You mean no, you don't.
Aurora
You
Veil,
mean
but he
Arctozolt?
hits way harder. Arctozolt, not Dracozolt, Arctozolt.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, I don't know if you'd. It's either if you want the electric or you want the water coverage. Vicious Rend is still a great move. I guess it gets the other one gets Bolt Beak too.
Mm.
And you don't have an electric. Oh no, you do have an electric hit. I'm going out of my mind. Sorry, guys.
No, it's fine. These are great little tidbits.
I mean, I would definitely prefer to have an Arctozolt over a Mr. Mime Galler, so you're not wrong in that way.
Big fan of this team overall, though. I would like
Yeah,
to
this is
see
like a
an
6 or a
eighth Mon.
7, I think. Just because of
Yeah,
how
I'd say,
strong this is. Like the top
yeah,
3.
I like 7 a lot.
Yeah, I think 7 is a good spot.
that's fair.
Like, yeah, deal with these top 3 first. Like that's like how each team is gonna approach this like matchup. It's all right. How do I deal with these 3 that are completely different from each other? It's like no.
Yeah, like I said, you could easily just bring the same 6 and just they're so versatile that they can be pretty much fine the entire season.
Yeah, and not only bring the same 6, but do different things each week with them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Other than maybe Kartana, I think everything else can be
Yeah,
very, very versatile. All right, so now the next team is kind of a veteran of the APDL. We have Odie joining us again with his Massachusetts Meltans team. And this team it's got some very heavy hitters with Urshifu and Spectrier.
yeah, this team's borked. I'm not looking forward to playing that top 3, even that top 4. I abused the hell out of Spectre last season, and now it's probably going to come back against me. So yay. I will say in air quotes, there is no fairy resist. Yes, I see there's Savali. So there's pressure at least on that to be the thing that
Every type.
helps. Yeah.
What are your
I'm
thoughts on Savali? Both of you, just like quick thoughts on Savali.
I always like go into at least when I try to draft it, like, yeah, oh, it's such a easy blanket mon that you can fit a gap that you'd want, but then I feel like with just the price you pay, you can just do something that does its job better in terms of a job better. Like the jack of all trades thing is that it doesn't do anything great in my opinion. It's trying to be a glue, and I don't really ever see it be that successful.
With draft in particular, normally when you need some, more or less just a rephrase of what he's saying, but I'll use this team as an example for it. At any given match, you want it to be a glue in 2 different ways. And I think that that's kind of a knock against just Silvally in general, is that you're only ever drafting it if you're needing multiple different glues, I feel like, and it just can't do that. So for instance, for here, a lot of the time, he doesn't. Well, let me just double check because I've been blind tonight. Yeah, he doesn't have a fire type or a steel type, and yeah, fire type or steel type. And the steel type is the only fairy resist, and the fire type is the only fairy resist. If you bring him like that, so fair enough. So you're basically always wanting him to bring him as a steel or fire type, but I mean, yeah, I guess that's kind of the gist of it. Like that might seem like a strength at first. The idea of like, is he going to bring a fire or a steel? But I don't know. My words aren't perfect here, but it's not just the, oh, he could bring it either way. It's, well, he's kind of missing both, and he's only going to be able to fill one.
I think you're trying to say here, basically, Savali, I think, is similar to Mew in a lot of respects in draft formats, at least speaking from a singles perspective, is that it shines the best when it's not forced to do anything. When you have a significant hole of not having a fairy resist for an Urshifu, I guess Togekiss would count as that just because of redirection. More often than not, you're forcing Savali to be something when if it could just freely be anything is where it shines. But when you try to just slap it on to be a glue to fix something that you have an obvious hole, it doesn't do that as well.
100%. And building on that, it's like it's similar to having two Pokemon, and it's like which one is he going to bring? But you can't bring both.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the immediate thing that I
it's
see with
different than
Savali all the time is Explosion, and there's two Ghost types on this team, both of which can manipulate some speeds. Spectre with Max Strike and Sableye with Quash.
That's fair.
That sounds annoying. I think overall, because we've talked mainly about Savali, I think like most of the supporting core. I mean, Stoutland is wonderful at 7 points, even outside of Sand. I think a lot of people just focus on that, but having Howl support for Shifu, the Intimidate, having Fast Charm, not really Fast Charm, it's what base? It's 80. It's decent, yeah.
Could be worse.
I've heard a lot of people singing the praises of Dragalge. It being in Trick Room obviously is really nice. Only having Mr. Rhyme for that, but you've got an extra Togekiss, so it's not that hard to set it. If Haas can make Grookey work, Thwacky's just a little bit better. So overall, I really like the team. There's the top four Mons go Burr. There's not much else you have to do around that.
Yeah.
And as we saw, at least last season, he went 4-4. He doesn't really need more than 4 Mons to be successful.
Yeah, and I've seen him do a lot of damage with Urshifu in another draft league as just kind of something he brings in the back. Because that's what its main role is in draft is, alright, we've gone through all the Dynamaxes. Now you have to deal with something that crits every single move, is decently fast, and will probably be Focus Sash most of the time, so it's going to hit you.
What does Dragalge do on this team? And you said the Trick Room with Mr. Rhyme.
Ice Shard and a weakness policy. I believe Rhyme gets Ice Shard.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's... Like, how often... just going back to the same Trick Room thing we've been talking about, how often is he really going to want to bring Mr. Rhyme? Am I just underestimating Mr. Rhyme?
I mean, a little.
I don't want to go into Trick Room with this team. That's my biggest issue.
And do you ever bring Dragalge with this team if you're not in Trick Room?
If the matchup pertains to it, it technically, if you don't want to use Silvally as the fairy killer, Dragalge can do it since it is bulky. But it's a dual aspect because teams are going to heavy focus on the top 4 or 5 Mons that you can kind of just bring the Trick Room, and maybe teams will be caught off guard because it's definitely not the first thing you're prepping for.
Sableye, I think learns Trick Room. Let me check. I'm fairly certain he learns Trick Room.
I do know Sableye is a pain to play against because there's so many things it can do. Fake out.
Also, Sableye does not get TR.
Yep. Yeah, no TR there.
Alright.
I will say Dragalge and Stoutland agreeing there. Both steals. Like he said, Stoutland at 7, crazy. I'm a big Dragalge fan. Great move pool. Good stats. Lots of stuff it can do. 9 points is a steal in my opinion.
Yeah, I just see a lot of games where Odie can kind of copy me and just lead Spectre plus follow me and then just bust a hole open for Urshifu to win later.
Yeah.
There's not much else this team needs to do.
I like Dragalge with Rotom Wash. Again, just as an ally switch thing. But protects him from ground moves. Protects him from
Ice.
I guess just ground. Yeah, ice. That's it. Yeah, ground move and ice move. And then protects the Rotom from grass moves.
So Spectre is gonna be the kill leader on this team, right?
I would think so. It's that Urshifu.
Yeah.
I swear to God, if it's Silvally.
Do you think that
rhyme? No.
Do you think Urshifu Togekiss or Urshifu Spectrier will be led more? Because Toge can protect both of them.
I think Spectre Togekiss is probably the easiest lead. So just having Spectre with 100% redirection as opposed to Rage Powder is very valuable because like you can just nasty plot up or because I mean even theoretically if you play it right you could have like a eject button on the Follow Me Mon and then go into Sableye and then you know you're gonna go first with Quash.
Or you can self Shadow Sneak for weakness policy.
That too. Yeah, I don't look forward to facing a horse again.
Yeah, the horse is really good. Like I think people underestimated it whenever Glacier and Spectre both came out. They were like, "Oh, Glacier is so good," and people kind of forgot about Spectre. And then as the format kind of grew, it's like, wait, Spectre is really good.
Uh-huh.
So,
If
and,
you had
and we mentioned
first
only
pick-
offensive sets for it. I mean, it's going to play offense on this team because this team has kind of no other offense, but it can have Will-O-Wisp, it can have Snarl, it can have Haze, Taunt. It's actually much better than what people think because of all those options.
If you had first pick but had to use it on Glastrier or Spectrier, would you choose Spectrier in Draft League
I would pick
or
Spectre.
Glastrier?
I'd probably go Glastrier just because not as many teams go hard Trick Room, and when you have Glastrier, that's kind of a deterrent to like anyone else to really deep dive into Trick Room.
I feel like if I take Glacier though, I'm kind of forced into picking something with Trick Room.
Oh, of course.
That's my only reasoning for it.
Yeah. I guess actually personally, I think I actually would go Spectre just because I like non-Trick Room teams more. I have way more success with just like Tailwind and Speed.
Yeah, just hyper offense. Click buttons, win
Yeah.
games. Spectre does
Which
that.
is a preview to my team.
And mine. Alright, back to this team. We got a score. I think that Spectre, Urshifu, Togekiss makes this team at least a 6.
I'd say an 8.
I'd
Oh,
give
you're
it
saying
an 8.
8. Oh.
I
Yeah.
agree with the 8.
The score is very powerful, these first 4.
I think it's similar to the thing with doubles where you're just like I think that there are things that seem obvious weaknesses or maybe not weaknesses but holes. But are the holes going to matter if you have one Mon and they have 3 Mons left? I don't know.
Just so many teams, or so few teams, I think, can readily deal with Spectre Togekiss as a lead. That this is just gonna steamroll a lot of teams have played right, and even then, just the threat of that as a lead, you can play around that.
Yeah. So this team probably a playoff team. Like I think any
Oh,
team
easy.
above 7 is probably going to be in the playoffs. At least that's what we're going to guess.
I hope.
Or else
No,
we
I don't
look
like seeing.
fools.
I don't. Well, I mean, again, team draft is different than the team or than the player itself.
Yeah, the
I mean,
player needs to make the team work, but
I'm not calling anyone here a 5-year-old, but obviously, if you give great
I think
tools to somebody
everyone
who
in
doesn't know
this
what they're doing,
division can play. Like this is a competitive division.
Mhm.
Who we believe is the top 16 people who applied, and I think that it's going to be a bloodbath for everyone.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward.
No.
I've got some fun matchups.
Alright, let us proceed. Alright, next up we have Luigi and the Melbourne Mantines. And this is a very interesting team with the first pick for this team was actually Marowak Alola, which definitely caught me by surprise, but having played against it a lot, I can definitely see it being that number 1 pick with the Thick Club giving its attack stat 160.
Yeah. At least first impressions on this team. Obviously, this is seemingly a pretty heavy Trick Room team outside of Beat Up plus Terrakion. Suicune, slightly curious because again, not much really benefits from Tailwind, so it might just be there for fat. I'm not a huge fan that most of the offense outside of Terrakion and Marowak come from Vikavolt and Drampa. Obviously, they can work. They're very good special attackers, but I know we have varying opinions on this team. I'm not particularly a fan. Ilya, if you want to talk why you like this team.
Okay, so well, let me. I guess it involves asking you a question. Do you dislike Cresselia at 15 points?
I dislike Cresselia.
It got moved
Okay.
down.
Yeah, it was definitely bad at 16. I think 15 even, I do agree, is probably a little too many points. The reason I like this team is I think a lot of the Mons have a lot of cross synergy. I like Cresselia with Terrakion. I like Cresselia with Marowak to some extent. It's not as good as with Terrakion. Suicune doesn't necessarily have any single or have any double synergy that I see, but I do like how bulky it is with this team. I'm trying to remember everything. I didn't write down the notes exactly. I liked Klefki a lot because it gives you an option of not necessarily being in. Hold on. What did I say about Klefki?
I mean, the big thing is screens.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Thunderwave.
mostly does screens, but there was something else that he did that I saw that I liked a lot.
Trick.
What was that?
Trick.
He does.
Yeah, like trick lagging tail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that was actually that. Yeah, that was a huge thing. There's also another Trickmon. I think it's Persian. I'm not certain, but the idea that was going in my head is they're gonna prepare for Trick Room. You can take their lagging tails even.
Lagging tail puts you negative priority. It doesn't make you slow. So even in
Well,
trick,
then
they're the last
fair
thing to
enough.
move.
But there's fair enough. Then they're macho braces, and I think there's I think I'm getting the names wrong, but there's items that just make you slower. I think macho brace is one of them, and then there's
I don't
another
see
one
those
that
items
grounds
enough
you.
to play around them. I think giving them the lagging
I have
tail is clearly the way to go with it, or an eject button. Button's so bad.
I've got and fair enough that this is just what's happened to me, but I've got a Trick Room team over in Wigglytuff Battle Guild. That's Phantom Strife's league that he runs, and all 3 weeks. And fair enough, it's hard Trick Room, and I think hard Trick Room's bad. I think my team's bad, but all 3 weeks, I've dealt with a random mon running, just being underspeeding all my guys in Trick Room by virtue of having a minus speed nature and either a macho brace or something else. And I think it's interesting to be able to take those. I think it is also interesting to be able to give people lagging tails so that you are just that you don't have to run Trick Room. I think Klefki does a lot for this team. I think Persian does more than just beat up as well. 1 second. Let me see what I had
It's
about
got
Persian.
parting shot, fast screech,
Snarl.
fake out, snarl. It's got a weird coverage too.
Yeah, and fur coat makes it actually not terribly bulk, or like not terrible bulk. It gives it a little bit of bulk. You probably still sash it regardless. Like, what else on this team is running sash? But
is there anything to proc rattled plus weakness policy?
Hmm.
In general, I do think that while this team doesn't necessarily have any superstars, like Lando T, or anything like that, and that partly is from drafting Marowak first. I do think it makes a lot of good use of some of these lower point mons. I think there's a lot of little synergies that work well. I think it's a really difficult team to prep. I think it's a deceptively difficult team to prep for, and I like it a lot because of that.
I feel like if I would play against this team, I'm not caring. I'm being proactive, and I don't care what they're doing.
Same. Personal question, because I've never really seen Nidoqueen run in doubles. Does it do anything fancy, or is it literally just like a sheer force attacker?
It's just sheer force attacker. It doesn't.
Okay.
I mean,
So
it does learn beat up.
Oh, it learns beat up.
Yeah, it does.
Huh.
I've looked up beat up a lot of times.
It's slower than Tarak, though. It's slower than Tarak.
It's not a good beat up user.
I don't know how to feel about Tarak in general.
It's faster than Terrakion and Trick Room, though.
Oh, of course, yeah. But like, just going back to the point of like the beat up mon, Terrakion is interesting to me because like it's a lot like more frail than the other ones, like Cobalion and Virizion. It's obviously the most offensive of them, but I think it's just frail. I feel like it's really frail.
I mean, it's got 90 across the board bulk. It's not that frail. Plus, if you go for max rockfall, you get the Spidef boost.
That's
so if
fair.
you can pair that with like an AV, and it gets access to steel coverage, so you can boost your defenses. But I guess just to your point, there's also rock types are pretty weak to multiple typings.
Yeah, or I'm just biased because I like Cobalion more, but
sure. But yeah, I'm not a super fan of the team. It definitely seems there's no star power on this basically.
No, this is more of like show us again.
Yeah. Also, there's a Golduck. Cool.
Hey, canceling weather was
absolutely
effective in one of the semis games last season. So
Okay.
it can happen again. But otherwise, I think this team is like a 2 or a 3. Prove us wrong.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
we're asking here. Like, prove us wrong, please. Make Cresselia worth the 15 points. Cresselia is really bulky, but
Luigi, I'm rooting for you, and I do think the team is a little underrated, but Cresselia is definitely not worth 15 points. That's not going to get found out.
It used to be 16. That's what's sad.
It just loses so much value in draft because it's very easily prepped for, and it's just not that
You're
great.
like forced to run Mental Orb. Everybody taunts it.
Yep.
It's like the only thing people do.
It's a strong amount overall, so I think that there is a point value that it's a good value at, or like a fair value at. What point value do you think it's a fair value at, or
14.
do you disagree entirely?
I think one more down is perfectly fine.
Yeah, I would only really draft Crest with Stacka.
I wouldn't draft. If I had Stacka, I wouldn't get Cress. Because like I see Cress as being like mainly there to set Trick Room.
I really like Levitate Ally Switch.
Yeah,
I like Ally Switch a lot.
That's part of the main thing. It gets helping hand, so it can support Stacka pretty well. Like you get Stacka, Crest, plus like a redirector, like even like Togekiss, those 3.
Alright, so are we thinking 2 or 3?
I'll be nice and I'll give it a 3.
Okay.
There we go.
I mean, it does have a redirector in Tangela, but Tangela suffers the same problem as Tangrowth. It's so weak to special moves.
That I'm not huge into Rage Powder just because people can know to bring, just to bring safety goggles.
Yeah.
Luigi, you can do it, man.
All right, in the next team we have probably the worst one with probably the worst coach. If you've heard of Spades, he's not real good. Like he's only finished 6-2 both of the last 2 seasons, and that's not good enough. So here's his team. Of course, this is my team.
I really appreciate that you told me you weren't going to take Nihilego because it was weak to ground, and then you drafted it anyways.
Okay. To your counterpoint, I thought you were going to pick Nihilego. So that's why I didn't touch it for a while. And then it was my pick, and I was like, I need a special attacker. Fine.
No, I offered it because I just wanted PZ, and I thought it would be a decent replacement as a special attacker. I wasn't looking at it personally.
In regular VGC, I'm not super familiar with it, but I know some things. The Nut Core, does that normally involve Dark Shifu or Rapid Strike?
Dark.
Dark, I believe, yeah.
And Thunderous is the other one, which I've never seen that core. I don't know what people are talking about with it.
It was bigger in Series 7, like at the early stage.
What is it about that core? Could it work with Rapid Strike? Because you've got Nihilego, and Thunderous T is still available, just theoretically.
I've never picked Thunderous T.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing is that they have good type synergy in terms of offensively taking on each other's weaknesses, while also all being offensive. With Thunderous being a support mon, also in draft, there's a lot of versatility in that. But at least less so talking about that core and talking about this team in general. I know not many people are at least fans of Bulu. I appreciate having Bulu as like your 8th mon. Like, it's not something you have to bring often. Every single mod on this team is usable. Even the Drifloon, having that with terrain. Because does it get Tailwind? Yeah, it does. So you can still, so it's, you don't even have to really worry about like putting Focus Sash on that, because obviously it's going to unburden mon. Anywho, you mentioned this before during the draft. Togekiss Togetic plus Duraludon is really good as a follow me core. That's going to be really annoying for teams. There's a Cinderace here. Cinderace is stupid. Lipard for Fake Tears for PZ and Nihilego, really nice. Teams need to obviously respect their Shifu because it's their Shifu. Seeking School is a 3-pointer. I don't think it's super needed, but obviously it does enough with Lightning Rod for Shifu and Togetic. I really, really like this team.
It's all hyper offense, but that's essentially what this team is.
I like my hyper offense.
What is the specific role of the? Obviously, it's aggressive, but what's the specific role of the Porygon Z? In so much as he's got 90 speed. I don't see too many ways to increase speed. There's Togetic, I guess. What was your thought with
Prankster.
him?
Well, Gelwings, but Gelwings.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm out of my mind. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, there's also Redirection with Togetic. There's Max Airstream with Cinderace. There's Lipard with T-Wave.
So he's just more or less there then to round out the idea of he's kind of serving like a Nidoking role in that he's just kind of coverage.
I mean, it's a very respectable special breaker. Dynamax normals are really good just because obviously they're only weak to fighting type, and if they're going to max Knuckle, it's not that strong. Having max strike support for like Duraludon, who's not the fastest, and same thing with Bulu is really nice for them. I also like having max Phantasm from it to make teams weaker to Cinderace and Urshifu. It pained me to see this go away, so hopefully it's successful.
Well, see, you were the one harping on that I need a Ghost Resist.
Yep. That's why you got Lipard. You don't need PZ.
Well, I wanted Meowstic, but that was taken from me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this team is just going to be straightforward hyper offense, but it's essentially going to be playing a mix and match game. Whereas, like, do I want Redirection? Do I want Tailwind? Do I want Lipard? Do I want, and then for my attacking, do I want Cinderace? Do I want Nihilego? So that's what this team is going to play like.
I'd like to see a Cinderace Lipard lead one game. Where you set, I don't know if he has an electric move.
Electro Ball.
Okay, yeah, where you set a terrain with the very fast Cinderace.
Well, I have Bulu.
I mean, you're just doing the very hard option. What if there are Bulus right there? Yeah.
Man, I'm out of my mind.
You're like repulsive with me because I don't like Bulu at all. I think Bulu is complete and utter garbage. But
it's crazy that Lipard is now above Bulu in points.
Yeah, we moved Bulu down a lot because no one was picking it, and even I didn't want to pick it.
Do you think he's fair now at 11?
Yeah, easy. I think he's definitely fair at 11.
It does go into Tough Luck's point that you literally have 7 other mons above Tapu Bulu, and you wouldn't think that would happen to a fairy, and that's saying something good about your team, I would say.
I think Fletchinder.
But not fairy, but
Bulu, but that's for a different reason, I guess. Anyways, I'm happy with my team. That's very happy with it. I was just gonna let you guys rank it instead of me, because that'd be biased.
Well, I mean, I had it as my number 1, so.
Okay.
I didn't have it quite that high. I had it at about an 8 out of 10. I do like it a lot. It's a lot of high quality mons. It's a full-on 11 mon team. Yep. I would say that there's a below average amount of like very strong 2-mon synergies. There are certainly some. But I think that is worth noting as a potential weakness.
Yeah, it's like there's not too much to harp on this team. So as much as Spade wants to hear us harp his praises, I think we're meeting in the middle and giving it a 9.
I'm done with
Yeah,
9.
I think that's fair.
-1 point for Bulu, basically.
Yeah, it's Bulu. Although Seaking basically makes
Bulu
this team
tax.
like an 11. Tapu Bulu
That's
makes it a
fair.
9.
But the Tapu Bulu's -2 points, man.
But Seaking is +2, so it works. I will bring Horn Drill for Prince one time, and I will hit it. I don't know when, but I will hit a Horn Drill.
Just do it every week.
Ah, yes. Easy.
If Hasegal can bring Grookey every week, despite saying, "Oh, there'll probably be one week where I bring it," you can bring the Sea King every week.
See, there was a week I played him, I had Rain, and I had a way to proc a weakness policy on Sea King with Volt Switch.
Mm-hmm.
So I Volt Switched into Rain, and then this thing got really fast. And like that's kind of how I used it when I had it last season for 1 week. But Lightning Rod is a great ability, mostly for Regieleki.
Mm-hmm.
That's about all I'll probably use it for.
Are you playing him?
I don't think so. So it's just gonna be there in spirit.
It's gonna ward off the Regielekis to make sure.
Do you mind if I borrow it?
If you play Hasselgal, yeah. Just the meme of like this beating Hasselgal all the time. It's great. Alright, so yeah, that's my team. Let's move on from this. Alright, so for our next team we have another veteran of the league, I think been here since season 1. We have Oxawave and his newly rebranded team, the Nijmegen Duskmanes. And he had the number 16 pick in the draft, which is my personal favorite. And he's got a pretty interesting team here, to say the least.
It's another one of these somewhat hard Trick Room teams with one really good speed option outside of Trick Room. I think this team probably does it the best. P2, one of the best Trick Room setters in the game, having Conk, Pharaoh, T-Tar, all really good in Trick Room. I know most of the mod squad sings the praises. I don't of Togepi. I pay what,
In
8
Bo
points?
Trust.
Yeah, in Bo. 7 points for Follow Me. I mean, sure, yeah, I can understand. I just don't really care. Meowstick, wonderful support. Just kind of wish there was a better special attacker outside of like Moltres and Tentacruel to really let it shine. Otherwise, I think it's just kind of like a dual screener. Plus, it gets fake out. I love Zolt. Zolt's great. Yeah.
I think that there's a second pretty good speed option with the Cottony using Cotton Down.
Cotton
Spore. Did you say Stun Spore?
No, Cotton Spore.
Cotton Spore.
Cotton
Cotton
Down
Spore,
is
sorry.
Eldegoss's ability.
All right, sorry about that. Cotton Spore. You do have a lot of pretty slow mons, so you still would have to run. It would be awkward because then you wouldn't have like with that particular set of necessarily a Trick Room mode because you'd have to run some speed on like your Conkeldurr or whoever you're wanting to bring. But it's worth noting that that is kind of a second way to outspeed. Also, something that I noticed is that you have a lot of mons that would like to be bulldozed. You do have some bulldoze users, but Porygon 2 can't use bulldoze, and I wonder if Ghost Resist, not aside, but taken into consideration, if you maybe think that Dusclops might be somewhat better than Porygon 2 for this team.
Well, I like Porygon 2 for one reason and one reason only. This team is extremely weak to Intimidate. Porygon 2 at least can do damage.
That's fair.
Also, it's covered slightly. Having your 3 of the big offensive mons being weak to Fairy. You have got a Pharaoh and a Tentacruel and a Moltres, so it's not that hard, but at least in terms of that compression is a little annoying in my opinion. But again, it's supported, so it's not that big of a knock. Are we going to talk about Meowstick Shiinotic?
I want to say he picked this because of what happened to him last season when Big Mac Zach pulled this off where he skill swapped Meowstic and Shiinotic, so Shiinotic had Prankster Spore, which is extremely annoying. But
And a ballsy bring versus an Yveltal.
yeah, just I think he's gonna try to do that at least once. He'll only do
Yeah.
it once. There's no way he does it again. He will do this once.
Yep.
But looks like a Trick Room team with Dracozolt being the only thing out of Trick Room. That's about all I see with it. You're going into Trick Room with this team, or you're not winning.
Still like the team despite that.
Yeah, no, I think it's solid.
Conkeldurr's great.
Oh yeah.
That thing hits so hard with Flame Orb Guts.
Especially with screens too.
Yeah,
like any damage you do can basically be recovered by Drain Punch.
Meowstic is like one of the sleepy picks. It's really, really good, like support wise. Fake Out, Charm, Screens, Thunder Wave, Skill Swap.
I love my Prankster mods. I always have to have at least one. So Meowstic, love. I don't think I've had a draft where I haven't had a Prankster mod.
Prankster's
one of the best abilities, so yeah.
Is there a better available fire type for him than Moltres? Specifically, something I see is that Hippowdon is available at 10 points, and
don't bring Hippowdon here.
No, I think Moltres serves really well on this team.
Yeah, Moltres
but is it better than Talonflame?
Ooh. This team doesn't
Talonflame is 14 points.
Yeah, the team doesn't need Tailwind. So I don't really see what.
And Moltres isn't terrible. Like 120.
It's also like his
attack is not.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's true with the Intimidate weakness.
But also like the type compression between that and Ferrothorn, like they super pair well to each other. Like the Firewater Grass core on this team is actually pretty good.
Well, you would still have a Firefly.
Yeah, but again, like Talon, you're more so going for the Tailwind support option, where Moltres can actually just be like its own Dynamax option.
All right, that makes sense. I just figured it was worth bringing up and considering
need something
out loud.
Not weak to Intimidate. Moltres is that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which it can go physical too. 100 base attack isn't terrible either.
No.
I like Tentacruel here. You guys mentioned being somewhat weak to Fairy. The stats are a little awkward. The 100 speed's a little awkward, and whatnot. But I do like Tentacruel here as the water type to help deal with fairies.
Like, what was that? I use Tentacruel with Bulldoze because of Clear Body. Like, that's kind of where I see the most value in it is with Weakness Policy. So I'm not sure what he's going to do with it here because he doesn't have that option.
I could see this is not an optimal strategy, but Dynamaxing it next to Moltres. While it is a fire type, you do get Hurricane, and Tentacruel could set the rain to make sure Hurricane doesn't miss. Plus, going for max oozes to make Moltres hit even harder. Tentacruel does get some decent coverage. I think it gets Gleam and Giga Drain.
Gleam.
Yeah, so it's got options. It's just a little on the weak side, like you said, with only 70 attack and 80 special attack.
Yeah. I feel like this team's going to rely way too heavily on Trick Room, though, with Porygon 2.
Mm-hmm.
Which you can get Porygon 2 Prankster also.
Does Moltres learn Tailwind at all?
Yes.
Not this gen, I don't think.
Find out.
This moves to watch
Tailwind in
because it was giving Raichu and Blastoise follow me.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, it doesn't get Tailwind. Yeah, you're right.
Wait.
Cottony doesn't either, so there's no Tailwind on this team.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just like an egg move then, or not egg move, but a past gen move. Yeah.
Interesting though. Meowstic
this stock's
gets
weird.
Trick Room. It does get Trick Room. I know that. Like, Meowstic can be your setter if you need. Also,
Meowstic P2, Dynamax P2, Trick Room with
Meowstic in Trick Room is not terrible either because it's super slow. And it has Yawn. It has After You, which a lot of people don't know is a move. And it's honestly a really good support mon for 7 points. EVLA makes it actually much bulkier than people think. I've gotten it to live moves from Palkia.
Does
So,
HP scale linearly? Like, is 35 HP actually almost double 20 HP?
I do not know that.
I can double check that.
I just know that Eviolite likes having high defense and SPDF stats. I mean,
Yep.
I guess you don't want to run Eviolite though, because you have Porygon 2. So this would most likely be hard Sash.
Uninvested Togepi has 15 more hit points than Duskull.
Oh.
And what's the total?
At max, it's 142. Duskull's 127. So it's only a
Okay.
15-point difference.
Yeah. Okay. So, wow, that's at. I don't know if that's better or worse than, in the sense of that makes it better. I think.
I think Duskull takes it slightly better.
All right.
Either way, Follow Me is a really good move, and I think everyone can agree with that.
I mean, that's how I won defensive MVP. So yeah.
Yeah, defensive meets Shield Award.
Yep.
I've got this team overall at like a 7.5. Maybe
I'll
closer
go
to a
with
7.
7 then. I just think the weakness
Yeah,
of Intimidate is
same.
just so great. Well, it's not like it's great, but it's noticeable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Some of the best Tricker Mons with Ferrothorn, Conch Elder, which I think Conch Elder is super underrated. Nobody ever talks about that.
It's only 14 points too.
Yeah,
I
and
think that
what's it-
unironically.
what's the attack
Oh, go ahead.
stat?
Sorry.
140 base attack and then has guts is just absurd.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a technical point necessarily, but I think part of the reason that he's underdrafted and probably underplayed in OU and in VGC as well is just the design. I think that people don't like his design that much. I think he's got a cool design though.
I like hitting things. This hits things hard.
Oh yeah,
It goes bonk.
Yeah.
it goes conk, man. You missed your pun opportunity. Goodness.
All right. Oh, we're gonna move on from that. I'm gonna sand rush my way away from that joke.
For
All
some
right.
reason.
Next up,
Oh,
we
God.
have the old man of the server, Bardo, and the Pheonix Rising Voltage, and he has probably my favorite core of all the teams. I'm a big fan of Celesteela, and I've drafted Rain the past 2 seasons. So combining both of those makes me happy.
I'm using Celesteela myself as well, and it's super fun.
I
And
love
having
Celesteela.
this amount of support with it, having probably the best lightning rod user next to it, and I think at first glance the supporting mons outside of the top 4 are, I think, like I said, at first glance underwhelming, but I think they actually work really well together.
Except the only one that I take exception to that is Scrafty. Scrafty
What?
is super
What?
underrated.
What?
I mean,
I think
love
there was a
Scrafty.
miscommunication. Yeah, we
Yeah.
all love
Oh.
Scrafty.
I was
Okay,
saying
yeah.
all the supporting mons are good.
No, oh,
He
I
was
thought you
saying they
meant they were
look bad at
subpar.
first.
I was saying,
Yeah.
But Scrafty is the one where I think we still have it too low. I think 11 is still too low for Scrafty.
Yeah, I'm using the team that I'm using right now has Celesteela, Raichu, and Scrafty. And I've been bringing Scrafty every week.
Yeah, like Fake Out and Intimidate are always good, and Scrafty being as bulky as it is with Snarl.
Lash Out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of base 60s that Scrafty underspeeds in Trick Room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Scorch, I think, is the only mon on here. I'll be ignoring Poliwhirl.
There's a use for Scorch. You're not gonna like it, but there's a use. Perish Trap.
I was literally looking for the one of my things that I was going to criticize on the team was lack of secondary Toad, which the obvious secondary uses is the Perish Trap, but and I was looking around and then I realized that you can do it with the Scorch, and
You can also use Anchor Shot from Delmise.
Ooh, spicy.
Delmise is something I like.
So it's
Sometimes
just one
forget they
target,
exist.
right?
Yeah.
But if you hit them both,
But
2 turns.
yeah. Also, I just think this team actually can utilize Delmise pretty well. Speed swap into it plus Diggersby, I think is an underrated option for both. People kind of forget like Delmise is 130 attack stat and really good bulk and really good coverage. I really like Delmise. And does Steelworker do it with allies, or is it just the mod itself?
Just Delmise.
Okay,
It just gives Delmise Steel Stab.
Yeah, I knew that much. I just wasn't sure if it, in doubles it applied also to allies. Anywho,
No, that's Steel. Steely
That's
Spirit.
Steely Spirit. Yeah.
And I think the thing we were talking about earlier with speed also applies to attack. I'm not 100% certain, but I think that Diggersby has even over 130 attack.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
Because it's got 56 base.
Yeah, Pure Power doesn't necessarily double like the actual stat. It's actually more so close to like 200 base stat per attack.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying with the EVs when we were talking about speed earlier.
And yeah, this team's got great speed control with that Rillaboom. Rillaboom actually, a lot of people know you can't fake it out. Well, you can, but you can't flinch it.
Shield Dust
is a weird ability that you don't see often, but it makes fake out obviously do nothing other than break a sash. You can't get burned, you can't get paralyzed off of like Thunderbolt or Flamethrower. So it's like weird in that case, but Speed Swap is great. It doesn't get Electro Web, but it gets Sticky Web.
Does it get a String Shot?
It might get String Shot, I don't know.
Does it get Struggle Bug?
It does get Struggle Bug, it does not get String Shot.
Oh, okay, but Struggle Bug is a great move. It means if Snarl's good, Struggle Bug is good as well.
Gets dual screens, ally switch, charm, fake tears, helping hand.
I really love Rillaboom.
I used to have a team that we self U-turned a Ludicolo into Rain with Rillaboom.
Ooh.
That was fun.
We talked about. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you keep going.
We talked about the Delmise and the Diggersby, but the Celesteela is also a really good speed swap target. It's not necessarily as hard hitting, but
right now, it does so much. Like, it's
and
really
even Centiscorch has. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just want to praise Celesteela. It's really bulky. With like you can go Leech Seed, substitute stuff, so like it's unkillable. You can go physical attacker, which you don't do as often. My personal favorite is Assault Vest, because this thing just doesn't die with that, and you can even do Power Meteor Beam to cover other things. Rain supports Steela
with the
really
Rillaboom.
well. Steela has no weaknesses if you count Rain and Lightning Rod.
Yeah.
Which
that Meteor Beam set sounds really good with the Rillaboom.
Honestly, Sully's gonna shine on this team. We've barely even talked about like Kingdra.
Oh yeah, I can speak from experience. Kingdra is really strong. And a lot of people don't realize you can get Politoed if you use max airstream with Kingdra. You can get Politoed to 201 speed, which is faster than a particular horse. Kingdra also gets Yawn and Icy Wind, which I used in my quarters match against Oxawave and offensive Politoed. Like it's a really good core, Kingdra and Politoed.
Not easy.
There's just so many good speed swap targets.
Oh yeah.
Even Centiscorch has 115 attack, which is not like the craziest amount in the world, but I don't think that that's something that people think about. I didn't think he had 115 attack. I assumed he had like 105 maybe.
Yeah, and also he gets Lunge, which is, is that the one that reduces attack? Or is that defense?
Yes.
Yeah, it's attack. Okay.
Fire Lash is the one that it lowers defense, which it also has.
Oh, well, that's
He's-
nice.
He's got White Smoke, which is a really good ability.
Ooh, I didn't even
Flash
see
Fire
that.
to
Wait,
save.
this thing can't get intimidated.
Nope.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm
Flash
starting
Fire
to
to
value
save.
that more.
I really
I
like
think-
this team.
Yeah, this is at least
Yeah.
like an 8 or 9. It might.
Yeah,
be a 9.
I'd go 9.
I give 9.
Bardo is a really good drafter, and this
Just-
shows it.
Just
This
don't look
is-
at last season.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
got
except for
like
last
8th
season,
pick or
where
9th pick or
Zekrom
something.
did absolutely nothing.
hmm
I blame the Zekrom though. I think his team was fine.
Does he have a telepathy abuser?
Yeah, Musharna.
No,
I
I'm saying
was
abuser.
saying to attack with it. Surf Kingdra,
And you just run money.
and then like
Earthquake,
Diggersby.
Easy.
Yeah. So there's options. Yeah. Discharge Raichu.
Nice.
Not the best option, but
I don't even know. Like, are we just? How often is Musharna even gonna be used? I feel like it just doesn't fit.
Well, it does. There's the Diggersby and the Delmise and the Centiscorch and the Scrafty that all have lower speeds. The Diggersby's not that low, but it's the. This is like we've harped on a lot of other people for having basically one Trick Room setter, but this is an example where I guess I'll consider a Rabombi a Trick Room setter in a sense. So fair enough to say I guess it's not purely one Trick Room setter. But this is an example where having, I think, very few Trick Room setters works because you're doing all the mons that you could use in Trick Room are also available to do other things. So, like, yeah, the Musharna might not actually come that often, but it'll definitely come once or twice to set Trick Room.
I mean, but also from the fact that you're definitely not having Trick Room as the option you're most worried about on this team. Probably like 6th on that list. Where you have other teams where Trick Room is a decent component of their team, and then they have a kind of subpar one. And also, I think this Musharna in general is decent value at 7. So this is a relatively complete team.
Yeah. All right. With that, we shall continue. All right. We have the Sao Paulo Toucannons, coached by Gabs, who put on the Cinderella story last season, going from 0-4 to 4-4 into the playoffs. We know he's got talent. We know he's got skill. How's the team look this time around?
I think he needs another Cinderella story to make playoffs. I don't like this team, which is weird when you have an Indeedee and a Metagross. What's the weakest policy proc for Metagross on this team?
Scarf Blaziken with Bulldoze.
Actually, no. I took a notice earlier. It's actually Bulldoze Sceptile.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah.
Sceptile
but-
also with Unburden too. You can at least use.
Yeah. Ideally, you'd like an Ice Shard user to get the weakness policy as well. But
I think Primarina has Ice Shard, right?
no.
That's
Fairly
entirely
competent
fine.
does not. Yeah. Also, again, I think we're going to go back to a point that we've had before. Really good Trick Room abusers with really subpar Trick Room setters. I'm not a fan of Aromatisse. I don't care that it can't be taunted. It's an Aromatisse.
But follow me Trick Room with Indeedee.
Yeah.
So you can't get faked
Yeah.
out. I'm
I'm
trying here.
Yeah, I mean, I see how the team can work. I mean, it's hard not to deny Rhyperior with Follow Me Trick Room support. It's just not the sexiest. Having a very version of Perish Trap. A lot of teams have like weird Perish Trap options, with this one being Primarina Goth. I do like Noivern. I know I barely used it last season, but as like a fast tailwinder with Frisk, has an option to be Dynamax in the same role as Crobat, with slightly more power, with more coverage. Having fast Screech for like Blaziken, Metagross, Rhyperior. I think it's Shadow Claw, so that's a way to proc Metagross. But it's just like there's a lot of subpar options, I think, on this team.
It is interesting at first, not saying bad or wrong, but you called this a rather hard Trick Room team, and it certainly looks like it. But you have Jolteon and Sceptile and Noivern,
Yep.
who are all over 120 speed, or
And-
120 or over.
And then it jumps down to 85 to Indeedee.
Isn't that kind of what you want to do if you're drafting a hard-ish Trick Room team? Like in like normal VGC, it doesn't work like that, obviously. But in a draft, don't you want to have several very, very fast Pokemon that they could just? I guess they can't necessarily just easily lose to these. They're not like a Spectrier or anything like that. But you see what I'm saying?
I do. I just think they're the subpar versions of that. I mean, yes, you cannot deny the speed, but in terms of like offensive presence, I mean, Sceptile's all right. Again, I think you need weakness policy on it. Noivern, I like. I don't think it's going to be Dynamaxing a lot on this team, but it definitely can be. It's a cool 7th mon for the team. Jolteon is just kind of here. Again, typically you'd like it for the just having the option of Max Phantasm for your physical attackers as a coverage option, because that's like the only coverage it gets outside of, I guess, Max Strike and obviously Max Electric. I don't know how you guys feel about Blaziken. I've always felt it kind of
80 speed. Its stats.
Because speed
so
boost
bad.
is busted.
Its stats are so bad.
Yeah, no, it's a coaching support on the team, sure. I mean, but to take a turn to be able to be really fast to do that, I guess the things that would abuse coaching anyways are slower. So,
Can Aromatisse activate a Rhyperior weakness policy?
It gets Energy Ball.
I think
it's Drain Punch too. I think it gets Drain Punch.
So I think it can. I was just trying to think, because a lot of this looks like Metagross.
It does get Gyro.
Yeah, Metagross looks like it's going to take the majority of the load.
As it does.
Yeah. So, like,
I think that Blaziken might be a lot better if he had better pivots in general, but specifically a nice Intimidate user. Are there any left?
Ments. We mentioned earlier. Theoretically, you could do that over Noivern.
Is that you got to gain 5 points, right? Salamence is. There's also Latios. They're both 14 points. You'd have to gain 4 points.
Latios isn't an Intimidator.
No, sorry. Yeah, I'm out of my mind. Sorry, I started thinking Dragon.
it's Intimidate for sure.
Yeah, like I said, I think this is just kind of a subpar team.
I think that there is a lot of potential. I think it's missing very key pieces, but I think with those key pieces, it gains legitimately 2 or 3, maybe even 4 full points. I think with an Ice Shard.
Bulldoze user.
Well, he has Sceptile as a fast Bulldoze user, but he can't bring it that often because, like, what else is he going to do with it? And I had originally thought Primarina learns Ice Shard. I got her confused with Inteleon, who does learn Ice Shard, by the way. But you don't have an Ice Shard user, so you can't bring Sceptile that often, and so you don't have a fast Bulldoze, and continuing. Like, I feel like there's a lot of cascading like that gaps.
Yes, Sceptile theoretically can do things next to Metagross. Being a grass type to take on bulky waters that Metagross somewhat dislikes, having access to fast Screech is nice. I'm trying to at least make this make sense.
You could use Tapu Koko instead of Jolteon as well if he dropped Spiritomb. I think he's 13 points. I'd have to look. No, he's 16, 15.
Yeah,
he's 15.
Coco's expensive.
Yeah.
Still, it sets
also
terrain
to fits this team,
Procaberry or Procaseed.
Outside of Metagross and Rhyperior, not even really Rhyperior, this team's just very frail.
That too. Ghost resist Indeedee, Fairy resist Metagross. At least some. Those are decent, but ideally you'd like at least 2 resist to everything.
Yeah.
I do think that this is the very typical example of a team, like I said, that can get a lot better with some trades. But I agree that as it stands, it's missing a lot of pieces and doesn't necessarily fully function.
Mhm. I think you could probably get some value out of swapping out Blaziken for something else and then going with your lower points fire/fighting to get that option. I don't really see why you need to spend $12 points on a Blaziken. Unless if he's going for like baton pass into the speed boost stuff for Rhyperior Metagross, and that's Pog, but this ain't singles.
Yeah, no. So, as much as I like Metagross, I think that this is lacking as far as that type of team. So, I think 2
Yeah.
is like as low as we'll go with teams.
I think I had this ranked as my 16 team anyway, so yeah, I'd say 2.
Yeah, it's.
I had it at about a 3, but fair enough to the 2.
And it needs to support Metagross more. It needs to identify itself as well. Like, what is this team doing? It's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
So it needs some type of identity. Who knows what it is? Its identity is old identity. Alright.
Identity is subpar.
And I do think that's a little harsh. I do think, like I've said, it really can come together. But yeah, definitely missing some glue, I would say.
Yeah.
In several places.
Alright, next up we have the Springfield Shedinjas, coached by Ilya-chan. And I gotta say, Gigas and coughing. It's about time people realize that coughing is really good. Well,
How did this team come together?
Yes,
I
inform
got
us.
the Lapras 5th round.
Yeah. I would have considered it had I not also been using Lapras right now with Whimsicott.
How
I
did
don't want to like
Lapras
double
go
up
round 4? I want to know this. How did it live that long?
because Marowak went round 1.
Oh yeah.
I mean, having what 7th Mon Gudra with Comfey, great. I like pretty much everything on this team. There's no beat up support for Cobalion, if I'm correct.
Yeah, there will be. I traded for Cobalion because I had a big rock weakness.
Okay.
Doug Trio is a trapper that beats up.
Yep.
I don't have the points right now yet though, but I'm looking at that exact thing.
Gotcha. Were you interested in procuring a flying resist? Because you don't have that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
It's actually really funny that like there's a steel type and an electric type, and there's no flying resist. Huh.
There was one before I downgraded from Jolteon to Galvantula.
Mm-hmm.
But that was again I had to get I had to deal with rocks.
Yeah, this looks like a fun team to use. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
somehow landing Incineroar, Lapras, Gigas, while also having like Comfey to support like half the team and proc weakness policies is really nice. I love Torn T, at least in singles. It's not as good in doubles, obviously, but it's still solid.
Still gets tailwinds.
Yep, and it's actually a pretty decent Dynamax option too. So, we'll see if Wobbuffet works. I'm curious to see if that actually does anything.
Yeah, me too.
Well, Shadow Tag is the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Lapras gets Perish Song.
Gabs actually picked up both of the 2 of the ones that I dropped within 5 minutes because I had I had Gothorita, I think. No, maybe I had Gothitelle.
You had Gothorita.
I had Gothorita, okay. But he picked them both up immediately when I dropped them.
So that was like a thing I was going to note is that you had like 3 or 4 Eviolite Mons technically before you made your transactions. So that's 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
Coughing...
Yeah. That's not. I noticed that. Man, it's.
Oh yeah.
I don't have anything to say there, but yeah, I noticed that as well. That's part of why I sent him away.
Because that was one of the things I was going to mention before the transactions is that now that you have Torn T, it's basically covered. Is that like all your fighting resists were like Eviolite Mons or Comfey, but now it's like you've got Torn, you got Wobbuffet. You're fine in that regard now. So that's been patched well. Because that's the thing is you get it's in a world lap.
Like,
I mean the top core, yeah.
Of the good mon, or like not I don't want to say good mons, like centerpieces.
Four of the top 6 are weak to fighting.
Yeah. But don't underestimate coughing. If you talk to JP Koala, coughing was really good for our VPL team when we didn't even have Gigas. Like, so it was like substitute pain split, just clear smog, and it was just it kept living attacks, shut down the opposing coal. Like it couldn't do anything, and they couldn't kill this thing.
Did the coal not have earth power?
No, we had Lando coughing.
Oh, okay.
So we scared it away entirely, and like it couldn't get aqua jetted because it doesn't have the ability. So.
Oh yeah, my team was the one that had coal.
Yes. Yeah. This is the yeah.
I forgot about that. I was remembering the match where Loaf got beat down by Mantine.
Rest in peace, VPL.
Yeah.
We missed.
I do think, in general, coughing. I'm kind of lucky to have the Incineroar. To have a good intimidator, because I feel like coughing. I don't. It's like a little sketch I would say to have coughing Gigas still, even if it is. I'm not doubting that it was great for you, but I was feeling a little sketch about that. But having a really good intimidator plus Comfey for the Gigas to just give it is it Worry Seed?
Yeah.
If coughing does die, I mean, we mentioned it was the first thing we mentioned. I think I got really lucky on a lot of the stuff that I was able to get with this team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, a decent good amount of stuff fell. Overall, yeah, just like a really solid team. So I'm excited to see what happens. I can't remember if I play you or not. I don't think we do.
I play you.
So, yeah.
I think that's week 2 actually.
I think I have like the gauntlet of Oxo, Max, and there was one other person in my last 3.
I know I play.
Do you
Max,
guys
and I don't
consider?
think we play each other.
Do you guys consider? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no.
I think Odie was part of those 3. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Ilya.
Do you guys consider Goodra to be a pseudo fighting resist? Obviously not if it's Sap Sipper, which it'll be Sap Sipper sometimes.
Fighting?
Pseudo fighting resist in that
What?
In that the GUI.
No.
It doesn't literally resist the fighting, but they're all physical attackers almost.
Reduces attack or not attack speed.
It reduces speed. Right, I'm saying it's not a resist so much. Hence the pseudo. It's not a resist so much, but it
No, because defense is like its lowest stat.
Yeah,
that's
we're gonna punch
most physical attackers or most fighting types are physical attackers. So you're taking that hit. I mean, more so, I guess also I just realized Cobalion gets coaching, if I'm correct. Plus, doing that plus Goodra is real nice. But
also, you have Intimidate, so Goodra's like protect.
Yeah. But no, I would more so consider like Goodra a theoretical pseudo poison resist because a lot of poisons are special. But
that's fair. The high special attack or special defense is definitely more important than the GUI.
Yeah. But no, I'm using Comfey Lapras Goodra on that Celly Raichu team. So yeah, I'll sing the praises of that team enough. But no, I definitely see this team working. Definitely have to make sure copy lives, but as we saw from the VPL, it can also be good in its own right.
Yeah. And if you so dare to bring Perish Trap against me, you so dare. Alright, so as far as rating, I think 7 or 8. This is a really nice draft, I think.
I'd put it at least an 8.
Yeah. It's one of the scarier teams that I have to play.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I mean, it's my team. I can't really rate it.
Well, yeah, you
can.
But
I think that's fair.
It's just there's a lot of bias towards that.
Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, I think that's fair.
Yeah. I think you got a lot of good tools. It's just how let's see how you use those tools. All right, and here we have the final team, the Wisconsin Wigglytuff, which is coached by the person who's been judging every team so far, Tough Luck, and
Hi.
you got Whimsicott.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of Whimsicott, at least in doubles. I hate it in singles. Um, Literally, the thought process was since I had second pick and I had no idea what was going to fall back to me, it's like, just grab Whimsicott and pair it with Best Available. And the Fish was there, so it's like, okay, cool. Plus Arcanine as well. I like this team for the most part. I think the big thing for me is it's missing redirection for Naganadel. That's like the thing I was like most iffy on. Also, slightly very weak outside of Naga, just because it's Steelix and Arcanine resists, and Steelix is. While I like it, it's not the greatest. Having double Defiant for Dracovish and Arcanine, and just also for each other, really hard to bring Intimidate versus this team. Same thing with like Snarl for Naga and Raikou. Might seem weird that there's a Mantine on this team for 8 points, who in their right mind would pay that much for it, but I really, really like using Mantine next to Vish, being able to set rain, boosting the speed of Vish, that you can run Bandit as opposed to having to run Scarf, plus having Tailwind to Whimsicott is really nice, and then just rounding it out with a solid electric type. One of my very first draft cores was Whimsicott, Vish, Mantine, Jolteon. And I elected to go Raikou this time because Raikou gets Scald, another option to set rain for Vish. Has some better support options than Jolteon, better bulk at the loss of some speed. Overall, like I said, I really like this team, but I just wish there was some redirection.
So, do you normally run Scarf on the Mantine to get the rain up before the Dracovish attacks?
No, typically, I probably shouldn't even be revealing this, but you can literally just look at replays. Is you lead like Whimsicott, Mantine, you Dynamax the Mantine. You have Vish in the back plus Raikou.
Gotcha.
So you can like Tailwind and then set rain with Mantine, and you're like faster than everything. Shit. My very, very first VGC match, I 4-0'd with No, it was a 3-0 because they Sludge Bombed the Whimsicott. But basically, I beat them down with a Mantine. I was the whole reason why the VPL team drafted Mantine. I gave them this core, and obviously it worked pretty well. I think Mantine is super slept on as a Dynamax spawn, especially next to Whimsicott.
I mean, its offensive stats are a little lacking in my opinion. I guess if you pair it with Fake Tears,
it's deceptively strong with Life Orb. Like it just picks up on a decent amount of KOs.
Yeah.
And it's just right in there, but yeah.
You can start like that's kind of how Kingdra gets all its kills, is because Rain gets up.
Yeah.
It's like I can see it towards that. I'm a big fan of Arcanine.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I'm so happy I finally was able to get it. I've tried to draft it so many times and I get sniped.
I second round this thing. Like it's so good.
That's what I did, but it was end of second.
Yeah, what Intimidate is the best ability, or one of the best abilities. Can go physical or special. You have Beat Up on Whimsicott, so like you can even do that with Arcanine.
I'm honestly surprised it went late second instead of early second. I actually get annoyed. I draft Incineroar, in my opinion, probably too often, but it's because I'm like scared that I won't get Arcanine by my positioning and wanting to get Arcanine, and I'm like, well, dang it. What would you say? Is Dusknoir just here basically to imprison Trick Rooms?
Partially. There's also a mode of it, since it's also a Bulldoze Trick Room user, is theoretically I can run Steelix in Trick Room. Just having that option is kind of nice. Being a ally switch ghost type for Obstagoon is pretty cool. I've also one of my last regular season games in the Wacky, I almost got beat down by Dynamax Dusknoir in its own right. First is cool. I think it's a very good value 6-point mon. I drafted it last season, but then swapped it out because I wanted Spectre. This is round 2 of actually trying to use it.
And what specifically is Raikou doing other than just doing rain stuff, or does he have another use as well?
Raikou has more as well. It gets a fast area. It's got fast for Arcanine. It's got what options it has. It's got other like as well, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Are you cutting out or am I cutting out?
Cutting out my I have extended Wi-Fi. It's crap. I'm had Ryko for basically. I'm just really excited to use it because it's got coverage. In the same way that Jolteon had Max Phantasm, so does Ryko. While also having Max Knuckle. Support options. It's got fast dual screens.
I don't know if it gets light screen. I know it gets reflect. But you have Snarl and you have Eerie Impulse, so like you're fine on that other end too. So
it gets light screen. Yeah, it gets.
Oh,
it
does get light screen, huh? I know it gets Bulldoze because that's all I was running with. It was Metagross and Raikou.
Yeah, it gets enough decent options. Because initially before I was like debating maybe to go Gengar over Naganadel. So you get like Gengar. Well, I mean, even that Naganadel does the same thing. Is you Dynamax Naga, get the max ooze boosts into Raikou.
Yeah.
You can even set Electric Terrain with Naga with Thunderbolt, and then have Rising Voltage.
Ooh.
I think there's a lot of deceptive cores in this.
Yeah.
This
I
team.
have one question. You always draft Steelix, and I've seen you draft Pitzer a lot recently. So like, they're just personal favorites for you, or?
I think Pinsir is one of the best 2-point mons out there. I tried to use it last season. None of the matchups really allowed it because stupid restricteds.
Yeah,
it's actually a decent AV Dynamax mon. It gets access to a decent amount of coverage. It gets, I believe, steel and ground coverage. You can go with the Max Bug, obviously with Stab to lower special attack. It gets Moxie. Pair that in Tailwind.
The stats are like kind of great.
Yeah, it's got 125 attack.
Like kind of.
Yeah, no, I think it's super sleeper. Because I remember I had a mode. I think it was against. I think Gabs was the team that had Palkia last season.
Yeah.
One of my modes was bringing AV Pinsir to take on Palkia with Thunderous, I believe, because you like Eerie Impulse and then get the Max Bug, so then Palkia's at -3.
Huh, that's actually really cool.
Yeah, like I said, I think Pinsir rightfully is probably like a 5-6 point mon, so for 2 points, it's pretty good.
Oh, well, you have to prove us wrong then.
I mean, again, we'll see if I can actually bring it. Because I liked a lot of the other mons too. Steelix, I thought I showed was pretty well in Thwacky. I think it's one of the better low point steals.
I'd like to see, well, rather, it definitely seems like a well considered team, pretty well balanced, and like you said, it seems like it's got a lot of deceptive little cores and interactions. I guess my main criticism, since we definitely got to give you some, would be like 1.5 fold. The main one I would say is the idea that as somebody with early picks, you were picked 2 or 3.
2.
It seems like normal. For instance, Odie, he was pick 3, right? Or pick 5?
No, Odie
he was
picked
he was
10.
That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah,
I'm
13.
Astounded then that he got Spectre and Dark.
He didn't first pick Spectre. He first picked Urshifu.
Yeah.
Well, that's but he got both of them, and I see like Whimsicott is definitely a great support mon and definitely worthy of a second pick. And Dracovish is great, Arcanine's great. The point I'm making here, I guess, is something like you with the early and late picks rather than mid round picks. I think like draft positioning wise, it's interesting to see that your team is more focused on, you might say, more balanced point wise, when oftentimes that's your opportunity to be able to pick real heavy hitters. And then my second point, which is more of a half point but kind of related to that, is the idea that especially with Whimsicott, and Dracovish kind of qualifies as this, I would be interested in seeing a couple more middling speed bonds that just absolutely hit like trucks. Like I said, Dracovish does certainly. Naganadol's fast and hits hard. Obstagoon hits hard. I don't think I have a particular suggestion or anything on that, but I don't know. Perhaps I'm not making a whole lot of sense there, but that's something that I saw as a possibility.
I mean, yeah, it's like I nothing above 25, I guess. Like either side attack, because it's 127 pincer 5 zapped. We talked about it 125. Yeah, there's a Kartana level breaker, I guess is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and obviously I don't think that you had an opportunity for Kartana, but let's see, what's Durant's attack after the
Hustle boost.
After the hustle boost.
Durant. A lot.
Yeah. The issue is just like if I put Durant on this team, what do I take off? Like the team was already physically inclined with Zapdos, Arcanine, Bish, Obstagoon.
That's definitely the issue with what I'm saying, because most of the Dartman and Tangela, same thing. Most of the mons that are like I'm describing they all tend to be physical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's like I think Naga came in and did the role of a special attacker really well for the team. Like I said, I wish it had Follow Me for it, just because it's so frail.
I mean, you do have fake tears for it though, so like you can turn on the gas in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, which I think
Airstream.
Yeah, it gets Air Slash.
Okay, yeah. So that thing can do a whole lot of work here. I feel like it's very centered around Whimsicott though. That's like the one thing I see is this team is very centered around Whimsicott.
Yeah, that was
very centered around a utility mon. That's, I guess, a better way of putting what I was putting earlier, is that things can get awkward.
I mean, at least with the way that I play Whimsicott a lot, I like it to be dead by like turn 2 or 3, just so I can like bring in Vish. Is that basically? I think this team is really centered around winning within 5 turns. I don't know if it's really well equipped to win long games, so we'll see if that's like a way you can stall out my early Dynamax.
I mean, with Raikou you can set up stuff, but other than that, your defenses are your defense stat is averaged to 101 only because of Steelix.
I mean, what Dusknoir's 135, Pinsir's 100, Fish is 100, Obstagoon's 101.
A little bit of an outlier.
I mean, you take Steelix off, and it drops down to what? No, I'm breaking it. 91. Yeah.
There's Control Z. It's probably fine. There you go.
Yeah. More so when I was building the team, I had the hardest time getting Special Bulk. That's half the reason why Mantine's on here.
It's like the Goodra of the team.
Yeah, no, it's like it's weird to see like Mantine is the 7th most expensive mon on the team.
Is it
that's like
yeah.
But at least I know how to use it decently well enough. Like that was the thing is that very first draft core, despite having like a Vish, a Gmax, Snorlax, Mantine was the kill leader. So.
I mean,
I'm sacrificing the surprise factor for some clout, but whatever.
It's all for the content.
Mm-hmm.
It's all good. All right. So as far as a number, I think I'm down to give you around a 7. I think it's just too centered around Whimsicott for
That's fair.
My liking. I mean, you could lead Raikou with stuff. Raikou is very good defensively as well, but.
I also more or less agree on between a 7 and an 8. Whimsicott's absolutely insane. But I mean, it's as I kind of said, and he said in somewhat better words. You're like, you don't have another like 17, 18 point mon that's gonna just like absolutely destroy people, like Urshifu or Spectre or anybody, and you're relying on Whimsicott to enable your 16 and 14 and 13 and so on point mons to do that, and it's gonna work. I think it's a great team, but then you end up with one big. I mean, I think that I'm not great with words right now, but I think that you know what I'm saying. But I think 7.5 is more or less accurate. What do you think?
In my initial rankings, I had it as like a mid-team. So I think 7's fair. Like I said, if there was a way that like I could finagle like a Togetic on this team, I think I'd be even so much better. I keep on harping on the follow me point, but
hey, Fungus
maybe also if it was
available.
I hate.
Who's?
It's like, it's rage powder. Also, it's trash. Like it would need to be like Togetic or Togepi.
Which are all gone.
Yep. Like I said, this team was also half drafted, also just for fun. A lot of these mods I have not used, so outside of like Vish, Whimsicott, Mantine, obviously, and I guess it's Felix. Like I've never touched Naga, I've never touched Zapdos, so those two things I'm really excited for. But yeah, I think it's 7's fair.
You know, it would be really good, and I don't know that there's room for it, especially with Dracovish, and you're definitely going to run Dracovish, is Latios.
See, that was the thing is I was debating between Latios and Naga.
But you needed the fairy killer.
Naga.
Yeah, that's the thing is if you have Latios on here, I have a Vish, Zapdos, Latios, and then Obstagoon, all weak to fairy. Really like Arcanine and Steelix, and nothing really to kill fairies.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah, because like I understand that Latios gives a lot of cool support options for the team. I spent like a good couple hours just like at work debating when I had free time.
I think it was the right choice with the Naga. It's just awkward.
Yeah, no, I fully see that.
Just use Max Rockfall with Naga if it gets it, and Sandrush Dracovish. Easy.
Unfortunately, I believe that is not the case. It would have to be. I think Zapdos does though.
Maybe there also?
Like does Zapdos not get rock? No, Zapdos doesn't get a rock. Oh, it gets Ancient Power. Ugh.
Oh, jeez. Might as well just use Max Airstream at that point.
Yeah. Raikou gets Sandstorm.
Is there a way to pick up Hippowdon?
I'm not picking up Hippowdon.
Yeah,
you hate Hippowdon?
Pick Hippowdon.
Hippowdon's a singles mon. It's not a doubles mon.
For suggesting that at the VVL. Like my
team
was very upset with me when I suggested
I'm not
that.
the one who ranked it at, is it 10 points? 10 points.
No, so the thing is that like I'm not even a firm believer in Vish and Sand anyways. I think having Tailwind Whimsicott is perfectly fine. And even then Naga gets Tailwind.
Yeah, it's I guess it's like kind of just
Does it get
the worst version of the same thing rather than an actual.
I thought it did.
If it did, then it
should. It does not. My bad. Okay. It doesn't. My bad.
This graphic is misleading.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, what Mantine also gets it in rain. Zapdos just paired next to Dracovish, boosting attack and speed.
Mm-hmm.
So little Ice Week also.
Yeah. All right. With that, we got the final rankings coming up. All right. So here we have the final rankings. We decided to put the Pheonix Rising Voltage, Metro Metagross, and Detroit Dracozolts as your top 3 teams. And then proceeding down, we have the Meltans, Shedinjas, Clawitzers, Wigglytuff, Duskmates, Komalas, Goomys, Applins, Decidueyes, Cobalions, Mantines, Linoones, and Toucannons. Oh, any thoughts to close it out, guys? I mean, we've talked a long time.
It's only been like what 3 hours?
Yeah.
I think it's funny how like before we talked about how team compression was pretty close, then we ended up with like 9s and 2s as rankings. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if any of these teams I think made playoffs. Even the Toucannons. I think every team has their own options. Just obviously some better than others.
Yeah, and everyone's good. This is a stacked division.
Yep. So we'll see my top ranked team lose to a bottom 4, so it's fine.
The top 8's gonna be the bottom 8 teams.
Yeah.
Please move me down immediately.
Weren't you the one where we put you, or like you were first put at like 13 or something, and then you finished top seed?
Yeah, that's the thing is Bo like did not care for my team if I recall correctly, and it's just like, okay, watch. Like I think it was last time they didn't see how the team worked. I'm like, how do you not see the team work? But anywho, we'll have other teams say the same thing for us by the season's end. So
yeah, I mean,
I felt like we were
wrong. That's about all we're here for.
Yep.
I mean, I feel like we were kind of digging in deep, all looking to, you might even call it adversarial, trying to find a bit of something that somebody else who had talked hadn't found. So I think that there will be. I'm not trying to dunk on Bo whatsoever, but I do think that we did a good job
We can dunk on
of like
Hasselgaard though.
attempting to find.
Yeah.
Hasselgaard's
Okay.
part of that too. We
Well,
can dunk on
I do
him.
think anyway that we did a good job of attempting to find what was going on and what could possibly be going on, and less obvious stuff, for lack of a better word, less obvious synergies, less obvious game plans.
It's gonna be a fun season.
Oh, totally. I'm excited to see all the crazy stuff people bring out.
Yeah. And by logic, as we get better at positioning people, the division's just gonna get harder and harder. So, looking forward to having a fun and challenging season and more playoffs. Like, I like when the games matter a lot.
So then I guess questions for the upcoming season. Who do you think has what Mon do you think is best chance to be MVP?
What Pokemon?
I think obviously Celesteela from Bardo as an option, just because of how well
that
that's
was like the
supported.
first one I thought of was Celesteela, cause like
Yeah. Odie's, I think Spectre is probably also going to be up there for kill leader. Urshifu is obviously Urshifu. That's going to help.
Cinderace.
Yeah, Cinderace. I mean, there's enough going on offensively on Spade's team that I think he might actually just like distribute kills.
Yeah.
Nothing is super up there. Because like that's the thing with like Odie is that
carries, I think Spectre will be like the one that carries the most. Because like Bardo has the Rain Core that can share the load with Celesteela, but I think Spectre on its own can take away the MVP.
I think defensive MVP is Max's award to lose. He's got enough options that can win that.
Well, I have a meat shield. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm literally nicknaming it Meat Shield.
Have you guys considered the idea of separating defensive MVP and utility MVP?
I mean,
or do you think that would be a bad idea?
They serve the same purpose for the most part. I don't know.
All right.
I just think
wondering.
it's funny how we reward like underwhelming coach and unlucky as coach. Like they're like negatives and we reward them.
Yeah. I mean, you highlight points of the season.
Yeah.
Looking back on it.
I'm ready to see the coolest set though. That's my favorite award. That and low tier MVP.
Yep.
Which you
I'm gonna
better
be
get
trying
Pinsir.
to get.
Pinsir better be low tier MVP.
Honestly, I want Mantine to get that, but
okay. That's
I'm gonna try my ass off to get a Tornadus T coolest set. We'll see though. His move pool's not crazy high.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's about gonna do it for us today. Feel free to tell Ilya and Tough Luck how wrong they were and how right that I was. Okay. Well, other than that, thank you all for sticking with us and watching this. This was a lot of fun to do. It always is, and good luck to every team in this division.
Bye-bye.
Adios.